useful, good messages for people. And I'm really looking forward to your session. And we asked you because we've all been hearing this phrase, big data, for a long time. And I've been going, okay, what that is. So I'm now looking forward to finding out. In fact, I may say something in my introduction. Monica, I heard great things about you. About, I'd say. Be a bit more. Yeah, yeah. You never want to sit up the front. It's like school. You never lose it, do you?
You think so, you let it fill up, and then
Yeah, yeah.
you go, okay, last 5 rows, move up the road.
Never works. People just sit there. I wouldn't move if it were me. You're the best boy in the class, Mark. It's nearly over, Ashling. Chris, if you want to just take that seat over there, and I'll do Ashling, and then you can, I'll hop back up and introduce you, and you can come back up. Okay. Is the sound on? It is. Okay, guys, I think we're about ready to start back. We'll let the last stragglers come in. While we're waiting, it's probably worth saying, I don't know why I care about this, but we are trending #1 on Twitter for Ireland and have been for hours. So we have surpassed ourselves from last year. I spoke to a number of people over the lunch break about what their kind of key takeaway from the morning was, and we've tweeted a couple of those. A number of people were very struck by this idea of the internet harnessing and how websites can harness the wisdom of crowds, for instance. So those of you who are tweeting, you might like to, we've created a new hashtag for key takeaways. So if you would like to tweet what your key takeaways are, we will, in the other great word of this morning, we will curate these tweets and we will publish them all. So please do that. Our next session is about big data and analytics, and this is Chris Davey from Accenture, who's very kindly agreed to come and talk to us about it. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about Chris before his talk. But we have a top tip, if I could tell you one thing, and the drum roll, please, for Aisling Bradley. Aisling is from Babro, the Children's Arts Festival in, that's probably the wrong terminology, in Galway. And Aisling is going to give you her top tip. Aisling.
Hi everyone, my name is Aisling Bradley. I'm the marketing assistant for Babro International Arts Festival for Children. And I'd just like to show you some examples of successfully conveying a narrative with an image from our 2015 campaign. It's very beneficial to use images. I could give you a lot of statistics, but in all likelihood you've heard them before, and it's not really going to give you a practical sense of how to move forward today when you leave the conference. So using images, it conveys information quickly, but it also leaves space for hashtags in your booking information, which is essential when you're on Twitter or Facebook. So meet Birdie. This is our avatar. And this picture that we have here is just a little thing we put together for Halloween. Often you might just have 5 minutes to do a post on social media and you might have no money. So you need to get something done fast. That's not going to cost you anything. So an image like this, it is simple, but it's on brand and it's on topic, so people will respond well to it. When you're working in this way, you should research what type of images your audience like. Experiment with different kind of posts, but also just look at your past posts and see which ones were most successful. Our audience tend to like cute, so we just work with that. Okay, so I'm just going to break down now for you why these images work. The first one shows Birdie with a stuffed toy and a needle and thread. So immediately the narrative there is that Birdie has created the stuffed toy, and you just recognize that immediately from looking at it. Then underneath, we show instructions and what the pack contains. So immediately people can take from this that for €5, they're going to be given a pack that shows you exactly how to make Birdie and will contain everything that you need. The second image is friendly and warm. This was used to attract volunteers this year to the festival. Birdie represents us and our brand, and the caterpillar represents the volunteer or the assistant that we hope to recruit. These are some images from our Twitter campaign. The first has party elements, our newly launched programme, our logo and our avatar. The overall message is celebration, launch and Bobro. The second image shows our avatar, our workshop theme and the Culture Night logo in one image. So again, these were very easy to make. They didn't cost any money, but it's just you have to think, what can you convey quickly in an image? Furthermore, these are some images that we used to promote the festival. We just kept the information really clear. Children, venues, attending, and then we use text to show what day it is, what shows are on. These are just some really practical tips for how to create your own visuals. Canva.com is amazing if you don't have a graphic designer or if you just don't know how to use Photoshop. It's got templates, you can upload images. You can also find images there that you can use. It actually has a lot of graphic design already set up for you, different types of font. So if you only have 10 minutes to put something together, this will make it really easy for you. And then if you do have Photoshop or if you have a graphic designer, just these dimensions are essential to know. They make a big difference just to how the information comes down in Twitter or in Facebook. And just when I was doing the research for this presentation today, I came across this website, havecamera.willtravel.com. It actually shows you different variations on how to post multiple images on Facebook. This is really handy if you want to put up 6 different images, but you want them to be, say, landscape or portrait, and you want to play around with the way they show on the screen. If you just follow that link, Facebook Photo Size Guide, you'll see what I mean. It's really, really good. So thank you everyone for your attention, and I'd just like to thank my colleague Sinead McPhillips, who's here today. She worked with me on our 2015 social media campaign and she made it wonderful. Okay, thanks everyone.
And like a true marketer, Aisling gave us the dates for next year's festival. Well done. I, along with all of you, I'm sure have been hearing about big data for a long time, and I am looking forward very much to hearing from Chris what that actually is and what that means, because I'm not too sure myself. So I'd like to introduce you to Chris Davey, who is the Master Technical Architect for Accenture, and he will enlighten us all.
Thanks very much, Una. Thanks very much, Una. So good afternoon, everybody. So as Una said, I'm going to talk a bit about big data analytics, then a little bit about perhaps the relevance to the arts. Just briefly introduce myself and Accenture. So Accenture is a large company. We 350,000 employees across the globe. We work across strategy, consulting, digital technology. What does this mean? In practice, this means we might work with many of the largest organizations in the country, both public sector and private sector, helping them both in terms of designing how they should go about, for example, using technology and changing the way they do business, and also implementing that with them. I trained as a computer engineer. I've worked both on software product development and also in IT consultancy. So generally speaking, how is technology applied to business? So first of all, what is not big data? So this is some product names that you may be familiar with. Many of you will be using these in your organization in some way, shape, or form. And typically these are used to perform functions such as your accounts or billing database, your customer relationship database, membership database, whatever. And I suppose, why is this not big data? What sort of data is this? So these are familiar technologies. These have been around for a very a long time in computing terms, usually many tens of years, is underneath the sort of the real technology here. And typically it's processing sort of quite small quantities of very high quality data. So for example, your bank account ultimately is some files on a computer, and it is absolutely essential that in no circumstance is that data ever lost, that it is always up to date, it is always reliable, it is always absolutely trustworthy. And using these technologies, we can guarantee that because we understand very, very well how they work. They're very tried and trusted, but really they are suitable for those kinds of data. And we're starting to encounter data now that's really quite different. So, we talk about a data explosion in the modern world. So there are so many things where our activities, and as we as people interact with the environment around us, that environment increasingly has some sort of information technology and computers within it. So be it our mobile phones, our smartphones, the content that we're consuming across such a wide range of devices, television, smartphone, tablet, what have you, computers, and things. And our interactions with that are generating data, and we're also just consuming data through that. So, whereas, all of your bank account records for a year might be, much less than a megabyte, one photo is many times that these days. So there's this huge explosion of data being driven by the technology around us. And I really, really like this graphic. We've done a few of this over the years. This one's up to date as of 2014. So saying, as of 2014, there is one network device for every person on the planet, and expected by this year there would be 2 for every person on the planet. And all of these things are generating data. So you just consider what happens in a minute. 2 million queries on Google, 320 new Twitter accounts created, and so on. And each of these is both creating data and using data. And this is what is really starting to lead to big data. I'm not sure if you've ever tried this. I tried it in preparation for this, but under data protection legislation, we're all entitled to download the data that an organization is holding on us at our request. And many of the, I suppose, the big internet companies, Google's and Facebook's, have made this very, very easy for people to do. So I went and downloaded what Google had about me, 20 gigabytes. I don't remember putting all of that up there, but literally have sort of every photo back to 2007 that I've taken on a smartphone, all of the searches that I've done on YouTube, etc., etc., etc. So really interesting. But I mean, again, and with that, they've been able, obviously, to build up quite an accurate picture of who I am, what I'm interested, and the reason, of course, is in order to sell me to their advertisers, which is how the big, complicated, and expensive services that they provide are created. And that is leading to the kinds of big, truly big data that we're talking about. And I suppose in the true sense of big data, it probably one of the better definitions I read would be data that is unprecedented in its scale and complexity, and requires non-traditional tools to deal with it. So that's real big data. So, and again, I think the way organizations are needing to work with data is changing now. So whereas in the past, organizations very much had their own data, and that was what they used. That continues to be the case. But I think increasingly we see organizations both creating and using their own data, purchasing some data for various purposes and using open data. And I think open data is a particularly interesting one. So many governments are starting to get interested in the area. Some of them are actually doing some work in this area to create and make available data sets about the entire country or particular cities or areas to allow other parts of, I suppose, the ecosystem to interact with that. And I think really the biggest explosion is coming from the Internet of Things. So you may have heard this term. So the concept is, excuse me, the concept is that all of these devices that we interact with and used to be fairly static and self-contained and do their own thing. So if you think in your house, your thermostat was a pretty dumb device on the wall, you turn it up, you turn it down, and that's it. It doesn't really know or do much more than that. And yet, if you think this autumn, several of the energy companies in Ireland have been selling smart thermostats. And among the kind of things that these can do are, not only can they allow you to set the temperature in your home, but they also learn about your pattern. So when do you want it to be warm? When do you want it to be cold? How long does it take to heat up your house? How quickly does it cool down? And of course, to connect that to the internet so that you can then control it from your phone. So it's really quite good benefits for you, but also allows them to build up it certainly enables them to build up a very accurate picture of who you are and many things about you. But that again, that relies on and creates a really large amount of data about what's going on. And this is the case not just in the, I suppose, personal consumption sphere, but also across industry. We really think that the, say, extent to which information technology has really transformed the economy is probably only about a third of the economy to date. And there's another 2/3 of the economy which will be transformed further by it in the coming years as these technology moves out of offices and out further and further into the real world. So, again, many other types of device here. I just think the last two there, the drivable and flyable, say now that a modern car could be creating something like a gigabyte of data a day, and that a modern jet engine, and again, you might remember this in the context of the airplane that was lost in the South Pacific, South Indian Ocean, those engines creating something like 0.5 terabyte of data on each flight. And this is coming out of all the devices within it that are being monitored so that they can understand how it's working. And so that, for example, if there's some developing fault within the engine, that by the time the plane lands, there's everything that's needed to service it, there when it lands. And again, the business benefit being that if you can increase the flying time by 10%, it pays for itself and over. So that's kind of the big data piece. Analytics. So analytics, I suppose, defined as the extensive use of data, statistical and quantitative analysis, explanatory and predictive models. So what is it really? So it's, if you think of, if you look at a graph of, or say, if you looked at a picture of Ireland, a map of Ireland, and there were just dots on it as to where all the people were, you would immediately see where the cities are and where the roads are and so on, because it would just stand out in front of you. Analytics is very much about allowing computers to be used to derive that same kind of information from raw data that may be very rough, but when you analyze it and cluster it together and visualize it in the right way, gives you real insight. So I suppose the graphics here indicating, on the one hand, it requires, yes, some maths and science, but it also involves an understanding of your business. It can help you get great insights about your business, but you need to understand kind of what it can do for you. So we'll talk about it a little bit more as we go on here. And there's huge innovation in this area. I thought this was a fascinating example. So UBS's bank, their investment bank, and they're trying to improve their performance in seeing whether the Walmart stock price was going up or down. And normally you wait for the quarterly results and then you see how they're doing. But if you can get any edge on that, then you can probably turn a profit. So they started literally using satellite technology to look at the usage of Walmart parking lots. And to start with, they were just monitoring and seeing how it went, and they could see, if the parking lots were used like this, then the stock price would do this when the quarterly results came out. And if there was usage higher, usage lower, it sort of worked out. And I mean, ultimately, they were able to turn a profit by gathering this kind of rough data as to who parked where when, and turn it into a profit on trading on Walmart stock. So again, lots of data, lots of analysis. You need to understand a bit about how the business works and have a hypothesis, but it's extraordinary what can be done. Again, this is from work that we've done. So this is a graph of the propensity to commit insurance fraud versus the volume of claims. So again, working with an insurance company, and what you can see here is, for the vast majority of claims, there's a very low likelihood of fraud, and but there's a small proportion where there's a really high likelihood of fraud. But the company were doing a lot of audit work across the entire spectrum. They weren't really being very targeted in their approach. And again, when you start building these kind of models, you can do. I mean, it's a very, very crude example. If you're a health insurer and you're paying out an insurance claim for somebody to have, their left leg amputated for the second time, that's probably fraudulent, and couldn't happen. But when you start looking at many individual pieces of data that you have across both the insurance contract and the insurance claim, you can really see patterns developing with the right kind of analytic approach. So what they were able to do was focus their fraud detection work on the areas that are more likely to be problematic. And I mean, the net benefit from this kind of work is typically between 1% and 3% of claims costs. And when you consider that the vast majority of cost for an insurance company is paying out claims, that's a really significant change to their business. So, like this cursor, and this is ultimately where this takes you. So, in God we trust, all others must bring data, or the idea of being sort of fact-based decision making. So, and again, a lot of the internet companies have really been pioneers in this place. But I think one of the most practical examples I heard was a debt collection agency. I think it was within a taxation agency, and they were doing debt collection, and simply testing out, okay, if we send this format of letter, how many people will pay their debt? And if we send this format of letter, how many people pay their debt? And again, just doing experiments in order to work out what actually worked best. So, and again, making a decision as to which one to go on based on the data. And it can give really fascinating insights. So this is this company Uber. So they're called a ride-sharing service, or kind of like taxis, that's a little bit different. And they allow you to book rides through your smartphone. And they're looking at the usage of their service across San Francisco and New York, and could see some differences in the pattern. And when they started to then break that down inside San Francisco, you could see that there were quite different, distinct cultural groups within San Francisco, and with quite different patterns. So again, the analytics, sort of clustering the data, being able to group the different types of users together, and they could see that, in fact, if you look at the financial district of San Francisco and New York together, those two are very similar. So again, some commonality out of that. Of course, this can go, in a sense, a little bit too far. So you have Uber, in a sense, have a great deal of very personal information about you. They know who you are, where you've been, when you were dropped off, when you were picked up, and so on. And this was another fascinating piece of research that they did that got them into quite a lot of trouble. So they had a look at what they called brief overnight stays. You can think of some other names for that. And they defined this as, where you were dropped off late in the evening, typically a location you haven't been to before, and then get picked up 4 or 6 hours later, and so on. And lo and behold, there's this amazing pattern. It drops right off around Valentine's Day for some reason, picks up towards payday every month, and so on. And this really caught the public imagination. It got huge coverage in the press, and people were really shocked by, I suppose, how much data and how personal that data could be about them. So I think when you do start doing this, you need to be tremendously careful as to how you use it, and again, respect the fact that at the end of the day, each of these data points is a person who has a right to a level of privacy. So this is another example. Again, really, really interesting use of real true big data and analytics. So Target is a retailer in the States, and they've got a really big shop if you've ever been in one of their shops, and they sell everything. And what they had discovered was that people would form habits about using them for something. So people would go and buy their cleaning products there, or they would go and buy their hardware there, or they'd go and buy their groceries there. But most people weren't buying everything there, and they did sell everything there. And they could also see that customers have patterns. So the same people will keep coming and buying the same things again and again and again. And it's really hard to change people's buying patterns. But there are times in your life, and they know, again, they could see this from the data. And again, if you think of the kind of data they have, every time you're in a major retailer and you're buying stuff, they can catch every single item on your till roll and tie that back to you and record all of that for as long as, certainly in the States, and use that to build up an amazing picture of who you are. But they realized that there were points in your life where your habits can change, and in particular around when the first child arrives. And what they were able to discover was that there were particular products, and I think it's about 25 of them, which they could see if you bought those, then they could predict round about halfway through your pregnancy when you were due. So things like starting to buy skin lotion, purchases of things like calcium and zinc. It was an absolute giveaway that you're about 20 weeks in. So as an example, Jenny, age 23, she bought cocoa butter lotion in March, followed by calcium and zinc supplements. 87% chance she's pregnant and due in August. And they know if they send her coupons on a Friday that she's likely to use them at the weekend. And the key point on this is that they can, when the birth actually happens, everybody knows it. It's a public record, and they should be inundated with offers to come and shop in their shop. But if they can get in there, 20 weeks earlier, then you can change somebody's habits and get them used to buying all of that stuff that you're now going to need as a new parent out of their shop. And this was a tremendous success, of course. And then it became a tremendous disaster because a high school girl got a load of baby products coupons, and her father went down to the shop and said, what's going on here? This is a terrible thing. You shouldn't be sending these sort of things to my daughter. And then, of course, a few days later, he had to come down and go, actually, you were right. But and then it hit the press, and it was a PR disaster. And I suppose, again, the lesson learned being people do not like being spied upon. And so what they've done is they've essentially, as far as we can tell, are continuing to do exactly the same thing as they were before. It has been a very successful strategy. And over 8 years, the company value went up by about 50%. But they are much more subtle about it. So they camouflage the things that they are really trying to target you with other stuff. So adverts for lawnmowers or whatever that kind of disguise what's really going on, and how much they really know about you. So I've done again a bit of background reading in terms of how some of this might apply to the arts. So I suppose on the right-hand side of this, they have some, I suppose, things that we've learned. Again, Accenture would typically work with very large organizations, but again, many organizations finding that, working in the field, their staff are not comfortable doing that door knock because they're not really sure what's behind the door and how much do they really know about the customer. That you've got problems dealing with running your call center and giving customers a good experience in the retail setting and in the contact center setting is really a challenge. And a lot of that comes out of, I suppose, the problems of getting a joined up view of the customer. And I mean, again, going from having kind of a false, dear Mr. So-and-so, dear Ms. So-and-so, to something where, they're actually being sensitive to what they really know about you. And kind of some of the things you need to start thinking about is, I suppose, how do, again, with the probably very limited resources that you have, how do you try and provide a joined up, consolidated view across the different ways that you interact with customers and really act as a single organization? The agile and experimentation piece is more around the, try some of it, try it light, and learn from your inevitable mistakes or things that you can do better, and move on. So I think some of the things, in a sense, again, by comparison with, say, the world of retail, which I know a little bit about, but not a great deal. I think you probably need to be doing many of those same things in that setting. But I suppose also just very much using the information that you already have about visitors to improve what you do. So, for example, we have done some work with one of the arts organizations here where we looked at their ticket sales over the past 5 years, and we're able to work with them to, again, apply the analytic approach and, I suppose, group their customers into different, what you call, cohorts, and start looking at, there's different groups there, and they behave in very different ways. Again, many of you probably know this better than I do, but so, for example, there's a quite high value. They discovered there's quite a high value group of customers who would regularly come to their events, but they would typically buy their tickets 3 to 4 days before an event. On the other hand, you had another group that would go several times a year, but it was a more occasional thing, and they would be typically buying their tickets a month in advance. So then if you want to reach out to those customers or market things to them, you probably want to be telling the first one stuff that's coming up in a week or so, and the other lot maybe plan further ahead. Also, it was giving some insights in terms of what was the difference between these groups, and perhaps giving some ideas in terms of, well, if the characteristics between this group and this group are such and such, then how can we convert from this to this? So we gave them some ideas, and I think again, it'll come around next year when they look at the data again, and we'll see how successful that was or wasn't. And then I think there's some really good materials up there from the Tate, and there's a couple of links there. You may be able to scan those QR codes, but if you search for Tate Analytics, you'll find it very easily online. And what I really liked about this was it set a really methodical way to use quite a lot of these techniques in a very simple and straightforward way. So, I mean, this use of a digital framework, I mean, what that really means is, taking a methodical approach, deciding what you're going to do, have the project, go and do it, measure, and then come back again. But they explain it in more detail on their website. The reviewing the entire ecosystem, I mean, again, that was about, they looked at all of the activities and interactions they had with customers, and again, this defined and measurable goals. So things like, they're looking at, can we measure and then maybe change the way that different social groups interact with our museum and the exhibitions we put on, so that, for example, they can see that they're getting equal exposure to different social groups. And all the pictures and graphics there is that's a spreadsheet that they have freely available that is open to anybody to use. So those two little panels that you can't read in the corner are sort of their most popular artists and their most popular artworks. And again, it's kind of a lot of it's interesting. How relevant and useful it is, I think, it needs to be worked out, by each organization using it. And finally, I suppose the state of the art. When the art is watching you. I think there's an article I found. And again, this is was the title of an article I found. The concept here is, using some of this quite advanced new technology to really monitor what's going on in your organization, in particular in museums or exhibition spaces. So, for example, you can monitor using Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. You can monitor where people are throughout the space. So you can, for example, be able to track people as they move around and see where they spend their time and what they're interested in. You may be able to link that. That may be anonymous, or that may be able to be linked back to an identity. And again, you could, again, see, for people who booked a visit, what did they do? Do people versus people who just arrived? What about people who, do different groups? Does a school tour behave differently to a, different sort of tour or whatever? And again, some of this can be very simple. I was at a museum in Denmark a few months ago, and they were simply using these QR codes on every exhibit, and you could scan it, and it would give you, like the audio book on each exhibit as you went through. You've probably seen that before, but again, you could. Not only does it provide that service to the visitor, it also encourages the visitor to join the Wi-Fi, because typically I think about 10% or so of visitors will join the Wi-Fi. And again, it would also tell them, what are people actually listening to, which exhibits are they visiting. Virtual tours, I think that QR code should take you to the Uffizi Gallery there. So again, I'm not sure if you've tried that out on Google Maps, but there's many of the really big museums around the world where you can navigate it digitally through Google Maps. Again, I'm not sure what the level of take-up is. And finally, this beacon technology. So you can now, you can use QR codes, but also you can put these devices around the museum or around a space to allow a smartphone to detect where it is and then do something accordingly with that. So again, the kind of uses that are being used is, so you're in the museum coffee shop, there's some art that's posed around you, and again, your phone can tell you, oh, this is by so-and-so, or that's the relevance of this, why they've chosen to put it wherever. So that's kind of it. I'm very happy to take any questions as best I can. Hopefully that was interesting and what you wanted to hear.
Well, Chris, that was fascinating, and I feel that if people are brave enough, they could tweet that their key takeaway was the brief overnight stay. However, I mean, I certainly know a lot more than I did. I'm going to open it up to the floor for any questions. Do people have observations or questions or comments for Chris? I mean, I don't think it's any secret, Fergus, that the organisation Accenture worked with was the Abbey? The Abbey Theatre. Yeah. Sorry, didn't want to put you on the spot, but that has been immensely valuable. Well, I did anyway. But that has been immensely valuable for you, correct? Yeah. Would you mind talking a bit about it? Could we get a mic up here?
Yeah, so we were very lucky to have Accenture segment our audience information. They come up with, I think it's about 7 segments, but it's what you do with that afterwards that makes the difference. And the main thing that we've been looking at is actually our communication preferences. So after we had the analytics done and the segmentations created, we looked at our what would be classified as regular audience goers. So previously we've been trying to move over to digital communications for everything and moving towards email marketing, social media. But then after the segmentation, we looked at our regular visitors, and the big communication preference for them was direct mail. So over the past year, we've actually reintroduced direct mail for this audience group, and they're responding really well to our direct mails now. So it's taking the data, getting
Yeah.
a decision from it
And
and
doing
actually doing
something with
something
it.
with it. So
Yeah.
it's been able, it gives you that insight to make a real informed decision.
Yeah.
So,
I used to run a venue, and you know, I was always trying to figure out a way, and obviously didn't. But I think one of the things that would have certainly been interesting for us would have been to be able to collect all of the sales data. So you know, you have the ticketing data somewhere, and then if people bought a drink, or if people bought a program, or if people parked, or you know, whatever they did. And for things like program sales, for instance, you were always guessing, you know, and there was, as long as I was in theatre marketing, people always said, oh, about a third of the audience buys a program, right? So that was always, so you would always print about a third of the projected audience programs. And then of course you'd either end up with boxes and boxes of programs, and people would be saying, what will we do with that? Or you'd run out, you know, so you would miss a kind of sales opportunity. And we never had the chance to get really robust sales information about those things, and to be able to actually say, you know, predict how many bar staff will we need, you know, all of those things. But bringing that all together on one customer record, I think, I don't know how you would do it, but it would be a really interesting thing to be able to do, and to be able to say, you're smiling.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is very interesting, and you know, there's a relatively proven techniques for being able to do that. I mean,
Okay, I'll talk to you later.
So, you know, being able to gather first of all, you're going to need the raw data. You're going to need some way to join it together, and then you're going to need to be able to manage that over, you know, repeating that in an efficient sort of way, because you can't afford to reinvent the wheel each time. And also a lot of it's very interesting about being able to see the change over time. And again, I suppose more from the commercial world, but where you do start applying these kind of models, you know, to fraud or something, you do this and you have tremendous results for a few months, and then the pattern changes and you need to do it again and do it again. But it's, you know, you can progressively, you know, squeeze it out.
Yeah. Is there any kind of pressure or pressure groups? I mean, you were talking there about bank accounts, and there's a proven kind of legislative environment that says, you know, this is personal information, you know, your bank account or various other things, your health records, you know, these are things. Is there any movement or pressure to keep other more, let's say, consumer information?
So, I mean,
private?
Any personal identifiable information comes under the scope of the Data Protection Act, and you need to have the consent of the person in order to process that. So if you are going to start doing these things, and again, when you click through that enormous page of text on whatever online service you're signing up for today, you know, that's what they're doing in there. You're consenting in to the use of your data to do that. And so there is great pressure, I think, to stay within the law, and you know, organizations are from what I see, are very, very focused on doing that. I mean, there's been some very interesting changes even in the past few months between Europe and the States, where again, the case taken actually in the Irish courts, initially, then off to Europe, then back to Ireland, on controlling the way that Facebook are allowed to exchange data between here in the States, has limited what they can do in this. And again, really to ensure that European data protection legislation is properly enforced. But there are really huge benefits from this as well. So, I mean, the consumer benefits we're kind of familiar with, you know, Gmail or Google Maps or Facebook or whatever. It's so convenient to use. We don't mind mostly them having our data to do that. But if you consider perhaps the area of health, where, and again, I am not a doctor and I'm not a specialist in this area, but from what I can make out, we have relatively limited information on many sort of adverse drug reactions and many kind of health issues that can be out there. Whereas if we had more data available, if you could measure the you know, the outcome every time every person took, let's say, something as innocuous as paracetamol, and the other things that were going on in their life at the time, which other drugs they were taking, you know, it is very likely that you would be able to discover all kinds of interesting things and really improve the health of people. At another much more banal end, something as simple as putting a barcode on the band on a patient's wrist in hospital, and having a full cycle through of this patient beep, was prescribed this drug, beep, was administered this drug, beep. You know, in the UK, I think that saved something like 2,000 lives a year. And, you know, pro rata, you'd have to say, unless we have faultless physicians here, and, you know, life is hard enough when you're busy, you know, again, lives would be saved. With this kind of thing here.
Okay, well, look, we've gone a couple of minutes over time, and Chris has to be somewhere at 3. I want to say thank you very much. I along with everyone else, I'm sure, has a different sense of both what is being collected, but also the uses to which it can be put. Thank you very much indeed, Chris.
Thank you very much.
Okay, guys, we're going to move into our next session. And we have one top tip before we go to Susan Hallam. So I'm going to call on one of the, I think, stalwarts of arts marketing in Ireland, Nicola Murphy. And Nicola is going to talk to you about her top tip.
Stalwart. It's better than what my dad said to me this morning. Oh, I like your hair. Like a young Linda Martin. Okay. Oh no. That's not me. It's mine. No.
No, you don't. No, I'd say just. Oh, where's Jill? Can you slides for Nicola?
It's all right. They're really fast. I'm not very good.
So Nicola's talk, just to say, is she won the prize for being the most specific, and it's called How to Sell the Last 81 Tickets to a Show.
With no budget.
With no budget, I should have said that.
And the slides would make it much more easy for me because I didn't learn it off.
Oh. We don't have it.
Okay, so
Okay, go, Nicola.
the slides were amazing. Okay, so in a nutshell, we used a mixture of Facebook and our Google Analytics and our Google AdWords account to see if we could push the boundaries a little bit and sell the last 81 tickets to a music event. So it won't work for everything. It'll work for something that is well known already. So the show was Bagatelle, the farewell tour. So we have 286 seats in Driecht in Blanchardstown, and there were 81 tickets left. We'd done everything that we normally do. It was in our brochure, it was on our website, we'd done emails. We already had our Google AdWords ad running, and we'd done a little bit of direct mail to the past audience. So we'd done kind of all the things that we normally do for a show coming in who are hiring the venue. Obviously, we give shows that we're paying a fee to a lot more love because we have to make the money back. So the promoter was emailing. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? So the bookings were already quite healthy. There were only 81 tickets left. So we were well over whatever that is, 2/3. So we decided to put a Facebook competition up on Facebook, and we made it a really good competition, not your standard just win 2 tickets, which I find generally get about 10 likes, 2 shares, and you know the winners because they're mostly your family and other staff members. So we got a local hotel. Hooray! You're up! Oh, thank God! Okay, so there we go. 1 month to go, 81 tickets left, almost sold out. Not doing too badly, so we needed a bit more help. So we got straight on. So there it is, Bagatelle, fantastic. So we got the local hotel to give us an overnight stay, which was the big draw. 2 tickets, signed CD box set, meet and greet with Bagatelle. And so we put that on our own Facebook page, which we have 10,000 likes on. We tagged Bagatelle's page so that they would also share it. And we tagged the Carlton Hotels page of 7,600 likes. So for maximum impact, and I stole this from someone else because I didn't think it up myself, like most ideas, the Blanchardstown Shopping Centre make people like, tag a friend and share. So I said, well, I'm going to do that. And Facebook went mad. It was hilarious. So we had 163 reactions, loads of comments, loads of shares. And then the phone started to ring again for people buying tickets, which surprised me. There's people going mad, and I don't have their permission to show you all that information, so I better carry on past quickly. We knew that it was most likely the hotel room that they wanted. They didn't probably, I don't know, maybe the hardcore Bagatelle fans wanted to come to Bagatelle. But we didn't care. We just wanted people tagging their friends, and we wanted all the people to be telling their other friends that Bagatelle was coming to Driecht. Lots of emoticons and lots of people multiple times applying. Crazy time. So over in Google AdWords, they were performing quite well, our AdWords ads already. So in total, the free advertising online with Google AdWords for Bagatelle's campaign alone was $900. So we would be one of the organizations that signed up for Google AdWords, I think it was May 2013. And if it was my top tip is for you, if you are a registered charity, please sign up for the $10,000 worth of free advertising every month. It is just a no-brainer. If you want someone to show you how to do it, if you're a bit nervous, I'll absolutely come out and show you how to do it. Because really, and I don't believe it. I don't click on ads. I thought, who clicks on ads? How ridiculous. People click on ads. So you can see, you probably can't see, maybe you can see. So we started advertising Bagatelle back in June. So we were quite early, and there was quite a nice peak, July, August. The brochure came out, August, September, started to dip. And then October, I'd like to think that because Facebook was doing so well, people were Googling Bagatelle, and the Google AdWords then showed an increase in AdWords clicks. So that's my pitch. Please sign up for Google AdWords. So it's driving traffic to individual pages on Driecht's website. So in October 2015, our Google Analytics showed that we had 15,512 users on the Google CPC cost per click. Sorry, users 6473. Yeah, going to 15,000 pages. And we don't have to really do anything. That just, you know, takes care of itself. We go in every now and then, every day or two, put in a few new keywords. So ultimately, we just let the Facebook competition roll along, did its own thing. People were going crazy. We picked a winner. She was absolutely delighted. And the last 81 tickets sold. So the extra income for that show was €1,620. And the cost to the promoter and to Driecht was $0. So that's my top tip.
Thank you very much, and sorry about the slides. Susan, if you want to make your way up here. And I also think it's very clear to anyone who works in a venue that actually sometimes, you know, all the money that you need to make is in the last 100 or 80 to 100 tickets. So, and that's a really good tip, I think, about if you're having a competition, make them like it and share it and tag it before they can enter the competition. I'm going to get off the stage because Susan Hallam is such a, no, I'm going to go down there. But I think Susan is known to most of you, and she's going to talk to you about our new, refreshed, revised and renewed digital arts marketing training materials.
Yes, good. I hope you've all enjoyed today as much as I have. It's been quite inspiring. I hope you're all taking away some practical ideas of things that you'll do when you leave the conference today. I'd like to extend a huge thanks to everybody who's shared their tips. I think they've been great. Don't you guys think so? The tips, and indeed, Nick, if you guys would share with me your tips, I wouldn't mind using them as examples if you don't mind. Speaking of examples, we have just this month completed a new and revised for those of you who don't know me, my name is Susan Hallam. I work for Hallam Internet. I'm here today under the auspices of the Digital Arts Marketing Training Program, which is an online training program here for Irish arts organizations. And over the course of the last couple of months, we've been refreshing the materials for you. So what I'd like to do up until about, I guess I have until about 1:15. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the training program, but then I thought maybe we could do something interactive together. How many of you guys have brought along something like an iPad or an iPhone or something digital? Thank you, good. It'll be more fun that way. Fantastic. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is to let you know that we have updated the digital arts marketing training materials. This project, I don't know how many of you maybe participated in the previous version of materials that we created. Did any of you do the digital arts marketing training online materials? So what we've done is we have updated the materials. They're going to be available online. The idea of these materials is that they are for novice marketers. These are for people who are relatively new to the basics of digital marketing, arts organizations. And our objective in terms of the materials for this year is that we want it to be all about taking action. Because I do know that when you all come to conferences like this today, that you may sit and shake your head and say, good idea, good idea. And then when I see you 6 months from now, we won't have done anything. So what we're trying to do is to provide support and guidance, a bit of a roadmap and an action plan that will help you all to be taking next steps forward in terms of using your digital marketing. Now, as we think a little bit about it, we've decided this year to break it down into 4 specific modules, starting with successful websites. And I would agree with Una that fundamentally, your website will still be a central part of your digital marketing activity. So within your website, we are talking about user experience. We're going to be talking about mobile marketing. We're going to be talking about design principles. We'll be talking about interactivity. For example, the ability to book things online, calendars, and actions. So we have a section on successful websites. Out of curiosity, how many of you are in the process of developing or redeveloping a website at the moment? Quite a few of you. That sounds great. So hopefully you'll find a module like that useful. The second of the modules is going to be social media marketing. Now, social media marketing by definition will be one of the largest of the course modules, running the gamut through the basics of the different social channels. And one of the things that we were discussing over lunch is the problem you all face now with how many different social channels there are for you to be considering using, how fragmented it has become. So what we're also going to be doing is to try to give you some guidance as to why are you using social media, for example, to sell those last 81 tickets, or is it to engage with your current audiences? Is it for you to try to reactivate people who haven't attended for a while? So we're going to also give a bit of a strategic framework as to why you want to be using your social media. Now, we haven't really discussed it a whole lot today, but email marketing. Do you guys remember the graph that we looked at earlier today that showed the different ages people are? That say people who are young have the internet in their pocket and they're using certain technologies less, whereas people that are older go to the internet and they crank it all up and turn it on. I don't know if you noticed, but email marketing in that graph, I'd like to get a copy of that graph, whoever's got it. That email marketing is right at the intersection of those 2 age groups. So that we're going to be finding that email marketing, email is still being used by some of your younger generations. We also do know when I speak to you all that email marketing still has a phenomenal return on investment for you. So again, we've put together some ideas in terms of email marketing, and the 4th of the modules is going to be all about measurement. You can only improve the things that you're measuring. So we're going to be talking about Google Analytics. We're going to be talking about social analytics. We're going to be talking about email marketing metrics. And I think if we can distill things down with you that are simple enough that you can use this in your day-to-day strategic and tactical thinking, you're going to be more likely to use it. So within the new digital arts marketing training, we have these 4 modules, and each module is going to kickstart with a bit of a self-assessment survey to see where are you in terms of measurement, where are you with Google Analytics? And the questions are going to be things like, how comfortable are you with Google Analytics and the jargon? Do you know how to set up custom reports and filters? Do you check your analytics regularly? So we thought we'd start with an initial assessment, and then you'll dive into the course where there's going to be a number of units. So we'll introduce you to how to set it up and how to run a report and how to create a custom segment. And included in this will be examples and signposting of resources for you. And again, I'd like to use some of the examples and perhaps that we've seen over the course of this conference. And we've made some very, very basic videos in there for you as well. And it will then finish off with a final self-assessment survey. And if you complete all 4 of the modules, make your way through the roadmap, you'll then get a final certificate to say that you participated in the program. So this is all ready to roll. To give you some idea of the kind of content that's lurking in there, We're working on trying to give very simple explanations. So here, I know we've spoken quite a bit today about mobile marketing. Here we've spoken a little bit about how mobile has indeed overtaken desktop in terms of time spent browsing and using the internet. So we're including graphs and we're including discussions for you in terms of giving these kinds of explanations. I hope you'll be pleased with the practical examples that we're using. So in this case, we've taken some case studies of what's going on, and we've tried to identify to you good practice, indeed best practice, of things that you might like to take a look at yourself in terms of using these different technologies. I think we all learn really well by using examples. Over the course of today, we've also mentioned some tools that you might like to use. And in the training materials, we've given you links to what I would call do-it-yourself tools. So I do know that some of you today have already checked your mobile friendliness on Google. Somebody did it, didn't you? I saw you tweet about it. We've provided you with a link to these kind of tools to let you check to see, does Google think your site is mobile friendly? And we've also provided you with links to other tools that we love. And if we have time over the next half hour or so, I'd like to share with some of my favorite tools at the moment. Finally, we've decided that it'd be useful for you to have some checklists. So if you're doing search engine optimization, if you're trying to rank well in Google, if you're trying to get more visitors to your website from Google, then we've given you a checklist of things that you might want to do to make sure that your website's going to be ranking well. So all together, we've put together these different kind of ideas that will then lead to you getting this lovely, glorious certificate of completion, which shows that you've worked your way through the modules, you've taken the self-assessments, you've taken a look through the different units with a view to the fact we're trying to improve your organization's use of digital marketing to bring the kind of benefits that you require. Now, at this point, I'm not able, the materials, whilst the materials are now completed, they're not yet quite available to you online, but we will be making them available. The information about the modules will be available to you in the new year. So we'll be in touch with that information for you soon. Now, what I thought we would do, though, is kind of shift gears a little bit. How about we all take a survey? What do you reckon? I thought would be really cool right today is I have created an online survey. I hope all of you have heard of a piece of software called SurveyMonkey. I've set up a survey for us to take today. And for those of you who are on Twitter, for those of you who are hanging out with us on the Google Hangout, I'd like everybody to participate. So what I've done is I've created a survey, and what I want to do is ask you a series of questions about your attitude about digital marketing. And I've also incorporated the self-assessment that we can use if you were going to be doing the Google Analytics measurement module in the Digital Arts Marketing Training Program. So what I'd like you to do is, if any of you have your lovely shiny devices, we've set the survey up on hallam.co/DAMT. That stands for Digital Arts Marketing Training 2015. All right, I don't see you getting your computers out. Get your computers out. We're going to do it now. I would like you to, and I'm going to bring my laptop down with you. I've also got folk here who are going to be helping me. Also, for those of you who may find it easier, my Twitter name is @SusanHallam. I have tweeted out the link. So if you would prefer to just go find me on Twitter and click on the link, then what I'd like you to do is just to take the next 10 minutes or so, and I'd like you to complete the survey. Now, the reason I want to do that is because while you're doing it, I, my darlings, am online. And I would like to share with you the live results as we go. Here we go. So I'm on SurveyMonkey. And what I'd like to do, at this point, you can see we had no results. Ooh, people are already responding. You're so darn quick. All right. Can I give you 10 minutes? Can everybody, if you don't have a device, can you share one with your neighbors? Is that okay? Oh, I'll go back to it. Yes, of course I will. Let me go back and find it. There you go. There's the link. We are live online. We're going to circulate around with you. Let's do the survey together and see what we get. Does anybody need an iPad to take it? I can share them out if anybody needs them. If you have any questions, just let us know.
They've got no questions.
We've got no questions. Oh, this is because it's such a good survey.
Sinead and I are here wandering around to help anyone who's
Hello.
having any problems. We're Susan's lovely helpers.
My charming assistants. Thank you. Okay, while your heads are down, I'm going to assume that you're still completing the survey. Take your time. But when you're done, if you look up at me, then I'll know you're done. And those of you, by the way, who are on Twitter, for those of you who have completed it, would you please tweet out that you've done the survey? Because then perhaps we could get more people to participate online. The idea also is, please complete the survey for you as an individual working at your organization. I'm very happy to have more than one person from each organization to complete the survey. That's absolutely more than welcome. How does it look on the mobile? Does it look pretty mobile friendly? Yeah? By the way, I hope you all know that the SurveyMonkey software is available for free for you. This is one of these tools that some of you may want to be trying. However, I do have the paid for version, which does provide some additional functionality. Does everybody have the URL? Can I go back to the data now? Everybody okay? Okay. Oh my goodness gracious, we already have 95 people who have completed the survey. I want to say thank you very much for helping out on that. We'll just give everybody another couple minutes. What I also thought we would do is we will include these responses actually in the digital arts marketing training as well. Of course, this is what's known as a self-selecting audience. You guys have chosen to be here today, but nevertheless, I think it's fairly, it's going to be a fairly interesting little data set for us to play with. Am I still seeing a few people still just finishing up? Okay, let's refresh this monster, see where we are. 103. Isn't this great? It's like winning the lottery, isn't it?
Oh, no, the second column isn't on.
The second column, turn your phone sideways.
Still working on it? Still working on it?
Just if anyone's on question 6 and you're not being led past it, especially anyone doing it on a mobile phone, there are 2 columns to fill out. So just turn the phone sideways, it'll be easier to see it.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Found it's been log jammed there. Thanks, Neve, I feel useful now, thanks.
I'm just going to take a little peek through the data so we can have a little chitty chat about that as well. Cool. All right, so is everybody getting there? We'll continue to receive the data. If you haven't yet finished it, don't worry. We will welcome your responses. But in the interest of time, I thought perhaps we might just take a little look at what the data has to say to us right away. So if you recall, the very first question is, who are you? And what we were hoping to do is get an idea of the breakdown of the roles here. And we do have, we have a number of marketing professionals as well as directors, and we'll go take a look at the others a little bit later. What I was also interested to see is where people were going to be right now. And again, 101 of you are in the room, and we have 4 people who are doing this, are participating electronically. Now, let's go on down. Let me get my map. Okay, first thing I was really interested to know is how important is digital marketing to your organization? Again, a bit of a loaded question given the focus of today's workshop conference, considering a fair proportion of our content was about digital marketing. I was kind of assuming that you might think it would be important, but if we take a look, you can see that clearly it's important. But if we break it down, here we can see our stats that really, it's only about half of you. And this is very interesting. Consider this to be your most important technique. And again, there was an important discussion I thought was interesting about the Abbey, that actually, you know, the death of print is quite premature. I think print is still hugely important, and there are going to be other marketing techniques that we are still using today. If we then take a look at a breakdown of which of the techniques are going to be most important to you, I think the easiest way for me to show you this is going to be to get down to the, I'm do this slowly, to get down to the actual table of data. So this question, if you recall, was how important are each of these techniques to your overarching digital strategy? And again, looking right off the top of the bat, we can see that the website does, it would appear to have the highest of the rankings as being very important. So your website is very important. And the other one that's very important is going to be the second from the bottom, of course, social media marketing. So it's interesting that those two, which again, perhaps may or may not have expected, those were the two that you all came up with being the most important. And again, what's also interesting is the one that surprises me a little bit is the one that is the lowest, which of course is mobile. Mobile marketing has the lowest score of being very important. So it's interesting to know, would be interesting for us to explore why mobile at this stage is not considered very important within your marketing strategy. I also did notice in terms of online advertising, in light of the fact that we do have Google Grants available to provide you with free advertising, I hope you're all taking advantage of it. And I do hope that you're all perhaps have a bit of a cunning plan as to how you're going to use Google Grants within that program. Anyway, that gives you some idea of where we are. What's also particularly interesting is the two, if we look at the row that says creating content, if you were to ask me what one of the greatest trends is going to be for 2016, I would suggest to you that it is going to be the creation of innovative and invigorating and exciting content. I would say content creation is going to be the greatest challenge facing all of us during the course of 2016. So it's interesting to see that perhaps two people can say that perhaps creating content is unimportant. So these are the kind of things that would be worth us discussing perhaps in a little bit more detail. Let's cruise on down. And the next question was about your money and where are you spending your, not just money, but your resources more generally. So are you spending more? Are you spending less? And again, taking a little bit of a look through, I think I can see that a lot of people are going to be spending more resources on creating content. And as we expected this time, that more of you are going to be spending more of your resources on social media marketing. Can you also see where content marketing dovetails with your social media marketing? I think it's creating these exciting assets that's going to be making your social media perhaps all the more effective. Now, if we cruise on down again, so we took a look at resources, the next thing is, why are you using your social media? And more importantly, how well are you doing it? So if we take a look in terms of, are we using social media to engage with our audiences? This is very, very important. And probably the two that surprised me a little bit with are the bottom two that we do not consider very important, the ability to engage with partners and other arts organizations. And yet I would have thought by us creating this community of interest of all of us, we do know that if I participate in one art form, there is a propensity for me to participate in others, would be for us to be thinking about how could we be also using synergy to share each other's content to be creating this larger Irish arts organization. really the other thing is they're the two that also do have not important at all. And what I wanted to do is to cross tab that to say, how confident are we at doing this? So what are your levels of confidence looking like? And again, this is where we have, I'll look more closely at this data, but this is why we've been creating these training programs for you all in terms of providing the support and the guidance that you may need. So in terms of I'm not confident I'm doing it well, the two that appear at the most is about sharing information about your organization, which is interesting that you're not sure that you're doing that particularly well. But the other one is that lovely column that says, I have absolutely no idea. And that's where we are. And there's some surprising numbers lurking away in there as well. So I have absolutely no idea in terms of 6% actually being able to engage with your audiences at all. I think the purpose of doing this kind of exercise was to see kind of like, where do I fit in terms of, for each of us, how do we fit in terms of benchmarking ourselves against everybody else that's participating in today's conference? And then we can take a look at, we've gathered some data about email marketing and what's going to be measuring. And the one I really wanted to take a look at now is what's the single greatest challenge facing all of you in terms of you doing your digital marketing. And the one that it does not surprise me at all, the one that gets 59% of your responses is, I simply lack the time to plan and execute. And I think that's because there is just so much to do. We can provide you training and we can give you advice and guidance. And the one thing that I am afraid I can't give you is any more time. Time is a fixed element. So what we need to be thinking about, and hopefully we'll get out of the program, is, are you doing the best possible digital marketing given the time constraints that we're all working with? If we take a little bit look as well, we can see relatively significant numbers. Also, although our numbers are dropping off in terms of people completing it, interesting in terms of survey design, by the time we get to question 8, our response has now dropped by half. So keep in mind to always be asking the most important questions at the tippy top. Now, what I thought we would do, I don't know how many of you ever get a chance to play with SurveyMonkey or these kind of survey packages that lets you do this real-time analysis. But one of the things that we can do is we could then take the data and we can then filter out or compare particular answers. Now, the one answers that we didn't get to, I skipped them at the bottom, let me come right back down to the bottom, is going to be, how confident am I using Google Analytics? And I did have a little bit of a chat with people over lunch about how confident you feel with your Google Analytics. And this was one of the areas Una wanted us to focus on in the digital arts marketing training, is the very top one. I'm confident using Google Analytics, and only 6% of you strongly agree. And we are getting people actually, I think we're getting a much greater propensity of people disagreeing and strongly disagreeing. So we can also say in terms of how many of you are understanding the jargon, 38% of you completely disagree. I do not understand Google's jargon. I'm able to interpret the data. So again, I think what we're trying to do is to tease out, is this an area where you need more support? Well, we went ahead and we've gone ahead and made the Google Analytics module, and based on this, I think I'm glad that we did. So, as I mentioned, what we can do, and I'll probably do this a little bit later when I get offline, is I can then filter the data to say, tell me, how do the marketing professionals in the room feel? And then how do you, in a leadership or a director's role, answer the questions in comparison? So some of the choices of what we have to do with the data will be for me to compare these different segments with each other. And for example, what I can also do, and I've set one up here, true Blue Peter style, I've set one up for you previously. Here's a filter that I can scoop out only those of you who do not feel confident about using Google Analytics. and I can see what roles that you have. I can take a little look in terms of where they are right now. Interesting, a fair number of them aren't even here today, which I think is quite telling. And then we might want to think about how important it is to them. So what we'll do is we'll do some slice and dice through the data, and we'll share this all with you. But I want to say thank you for participating, and hopefully this gives you a little bit of a feel for what's happening in the digital space at the moment. Now, we have the new Digital Arts Marketing Training Program. We've got a little bit of a feel for how you guys are feeling about digital. And I thought what I would do is very briefly is just run through some new tools. I know you guys like new tools. Shall I give you some tips and tricks of some new tools? Some of you may have heard me speak about these before. And then we would like to wind up with Q&A. And we have a whole bunch of people in the room. Annette, there's a lot of us in the room that we can all answer questions for you. Are you ready for some tools? First tool I'd like to recommend to you is a free website called marketinggrader.com. Marketing Grader is available through a company called HubSpot, and what it will do is it will go through your website and it will score your activity based on your social media activity, your social media profile, your search engine optimization, the usability of your website, your mobile friendliness, and it will give you a lovely overall score, but more importantly, an action plan of specific things you should be changing or improving if you want to be getting even better at your digital marketing. This is called HubSpot Marketing Grader. The second one I'd like to mention to you is my personal favorite. This is a free piece of software called Dasheroo. I don't know how many of you have to produce monthly reporting, but what Dasheroo does is allows you to scoop up all your data from Google Analytics, Facebook, Twitter. If any of you are using email marketing platforms like MailChimp, and it will create a single dashboard with all of your key performance indicators available for you there. So in this particular example, you're looking at my Twitter analytics, and it's reporting the basic things like how many followers do I have and how many people I follow. But more importantly, in the very bottom left-hand corner in orange, it has automatically calculated something called my amplification rate. I would consider this to be your single most important Twitter metric. And that means if I put something out on Twitter, how likely is somebody going to be to engage or reply or comment on my tweets? I don't care how many tweets you send out. If nobody engages with them, you are Billy No Mates. And what this will do is provide you automatically with your statistic of what your amplification rate is. And I think I've mentioned it to this all of you before, it's only worth measuring things if you're gonna do something about it. So as we look at this data, what we might want to think about is what kind of tweets, what kind of content am I sending out that does get amplified so I can do more of the same. This is a free service called Dasheroo. It will save you time on your monthly reporting. It will give you a single dashboard with virtually all of your key performance indicators in it for most of the social digital channels that you're using. Dasheroo. Oh, another really cool one that I love. Here's one called Piktochart. Are any of you interested in creating infographics? Infographics, of course, is the ability to tell a story through pictures. And the story is usually going to be drawing on data. So for example, I did the survey of all 100 of you, and I might want to create an infographic. Piktochart is a free infographic creation tool that lets you cut and paste your data from a spreadsheet, and it will automatically create all the charts and everything that you need. So for example, there was some data in our local newspaper, I'm based in Nottingham City Centre, of the most influential people in Nottingham. I just grabbed that Piktochart template and I just poured my data into it, and I created an infographic within 15 or 20 minutes. So If any of you want to be, we talked about the big trend for 2016 is going to be for you to be creating compelling content, whether it be video, whether it be images, whether it be infographics. Here's a tool that you can use to quickly and effectively create little infographics that you can share with people. Next to the tools I want to share with you has already been mentioned today. I can't remember who talked about Canva. Who mentioned Canva? Somebody did. You did. Thank you for doing it. And I would back you up 100% on that. Canva is a free tool that allows you to create those little pictures that you need to put into social media. So what it does is it gives you a little template into which you can flood your own images, you can overlay text. And the beauty of Canva is you can say, I need a Facebook cover, and it will automatically create a template the right size. Or you can say, I want to put an image on Twitter. It creates the right size. You can then use Canva's images, but you have to pay for them. I think you should be using your own images anyway. You can put in your own images, we can overlay text, and Bob's your uncle. Fast and furious tool for you to create lovely social media marketing images. Here's one that I also love called Follower Wonk. It's got to have a weird one in the bag. Follower Wonk is a tool that allows you to search through social media profiles to try to find influential people. And there's two ways that you can search. The first thing that Follower Wonk does is allows you to search Twitter users' biographies in their profile. So in this particular example, I've put the phrase in Arts Ireland. And what it will come back to me is a list of all the most influential people that have arts and Ireland in their biography. These people, of course, are going to be your new best friend. So these are people who have a huge following, who get retweeted a lot, who get amplified a lot, who generate content. These are highly influential people, and you can search by keyword. So it could be names of places, it could be by art form, it could be by names of touring companies, and you'll be able to find influential people. I said there are two ways to search on Follower Wonk. And the other thing I can do is I can put in my Twitter handle at Susan Hallam, and it will echo back to me. It will report back who are my most influential followers. So what it will do is it will let me know who follows me, that has lots of followers of their own, that gets retweeted a lot, that is a big player in the social space. And I can target my social activity on these individuals. So I might want to engage with them. I might want to share with them. I might want to retweet them so that they in turn can amplify my message out, and they are a key influencer. So I can search by keyword. I can search by my handle to see who is influential, who follows me. And the third one you're really going to like, I can search for you, and I can see who your influential followers are. And I can see if you have journalists following you. Do you have the editor of The Guardian's culture section? And this way I can find out who the influential people are following you. And what's my plan going to be? I'm going to engage with them now as well. So if you need to find out who's influential on the internet, this is a great tool if you want to be researching the levels of influence of people on Twitter. Hate to say, don't take this the wrong way, but not everybody on Twitter is equal. And again, I hate to say this, but you may want to focus your time on more influential. And then I'm going to finish up with my second favorite. If Dasheroo's my favorite, this is my second favorite. This is called BuzzSumo. Now, BuzzSumo only gives you limited access for free, but for most of our arts organizations, the free version is going to be sufficient. And what BuzzSumo does is allows you, again, to research how your content is being shared socially on the internet. So if we have any people here who write blogs, do we have any bloggers here today? Yeah, we have a few bloggers. What you can do is put your blog into BuzzSumo, and it will tell you which of your articles have been shared the most on the internet. But what you can also do, so we could either do it for our content to measure what's been shared most. We, by the way, are running a report at the moment where we're analyzing for 2015 which of our content got shared the most over the last year, so that we can learn from 2016 what kind of content should we be creating. And I have to say to you right now, our two top forms of content that got shared were both infographics. Interesting to see. And you may find that your most shared content, I would argue for most of you, is going to be video or images. This is likely to be the case. But what BuzzSumo also allows me to do is to put in a key phrase or a word. So for example, if I was looking for ideas of things that I could write about, sometimes I think you guys run out of ideas of what you can write about. I know I certainly do. If I were to put in the key phrase, conferences in Dublin, it will show me which articles have been written about conferences in Dublin that have been shared the most on social media. So I could put in the word Mary Poppins, or I could put in the word pantomime. I could even put in pantomime dames, and it would show me which articles have people written about pantomime dames that have been shared the most. So what this is going to do is to give you ideas for inspiration of the kind of content you could be creating that is likely to get shared across social media. It's an ideas generator tool. Buffer. Buffer, of course, is a social media scheduling tool, which means as I'm trolling around the internet and I come to a website I like, I have a plugin on my browser. I just press the buffer button and it will tweet the content for me later. So what it means is as you discover things that you like, you just hit the buffer button and it will create a schedule of tweets of the content that you've liked. This is going to be a huge time-saving tool, but the other thing that Buffer does, when you log in, say, with your Twitter account, Buffer will analyze your users. Buffer will analyze when do your users interact with you, and it will schedule these items at times that it knows that your users are online, and it knows when your users are likely to interact with you. So Buffer is an intelligent scheduling tool that takes into consideration your followers' behavior and schedules accordingly. I do know a number of organizations that I've worked with previously. You guys tend to publish things on social media when it's convenient for you, and it might not actually be a time that is convenient for your audiences. So have a little think about that. And the final tool I wanted to mention just was AdWords. We've spoken about that quite a bit. Okay, I know I've taken a little bit longer than I wanted. We have about 10 minutes left. This is a time to ask anything your little heart desires. We've covered loads of different things during the course of today. As long as it's about digital media, I can't tell you what to cook for dinner. But does anybody have any questions of things that you'd like to ask about, either with regards to social media, search engine optimization, email marketing, video, whatever we can, and I'm sure the other folk will be able to help answer as well. Any questions in the room? Oh, you're not going to tell me no, are you? Yes, in the back. I don't have my glasses on, so I can't hear you very well.
Hi, I'm Olivia Vitiskova from Summerhall TV.
Hi, Olivia.
And we work together with the Arts Council to create videos for organizations, arts organizations, and we did videos for some of you here. And I'd just like to ask how we could share our videos wider and encourage organizations to share video content even more.
So I guess the question is if you are creating video content, how can you kind of accelerate the sharing of that content?
Yeah, and increase the reach.
And then by definition, increasing reach. There's two things I'd like to suggest to you. In my experience, what usually accelerates the sharing of virtually any kind of content, but in particular YouTube content, is that you need to get a key influencer to start the process. So we did some content, and lo and behold, a Hollywood actor shared the content. And that one individual then drove all the further sharing. Does that make sense? So in my experience, particularly with YouTube content, is we need to get a key influencer to kickstart the domino effect. If that one person tips the dominoes, then it will all happen. So I would suggest, in terms of this kind of content, you need to have a marketing strategy that when you're generating this content, you explicitly identify who are we going to target to get to share the content. Now, I've mentioned the first big trend in terms of 2016, and I believe that's going to be about content marketing and content generation. And that brings me very nicely, thank you, to the second of the biggest trends for 2016, in my opinion, and that is digital PR. Do you know what I mean in terms of PR? Just like we used to do in the real world. I think what we need to be doing now is, if on this YouTube campaign we wanted to accelerate the sharing, I need a PR campaign that I get the attention of that Hollywood actor and that person shares the content. So the first thing would be to be creating a campaign around a particular set of individuals. The second set of activities is then to make it easy to share the content. And shareability, I think, is very, very important. And these are simple things, like making sure, do you have share buttons prominently and correctly placed on your website? Are you sharing the content in a timely and repeated fashion across your social channels? Again, I don't believe it's worth incentivizing people to share. It's not, and that desperate please share and please retweet thing, I don't think that works. People need to want to share it. So the first thing is, can you identify a key influencer? The second thing is, do you have all of the technology set up that makes it easy to share? And the third thing, and I think this is your job, people only share good stuff. Technical term, that good stuff. But what we do know about good stuff is you need to think about the motivation of why would your audience share anything. And there are a number of different reasons why people share, but in the main, the reason I share stuff is all about me. I share it because it's going to make me look good. I'm going to share it because it makes me look clever. I'm going to share it because it makes me feel happy. So what you might want to be doing is to thinking about, in terms of the content that you're generating, is why would I want to share your content? You know your audience is the best. And perhaps before you even go to the trouble of creating the content, make sure you have that kind of marketing plan set up. I don't know, does anybody else want to add anything else to that in terms of shareability and driving shares? No? Okay, well, I hope does that answer your question? Give you some ideas? Any other questions for us? Anything lurking in the back?
Hi, I'm Leanne. I'm from the Contemporary Music Centre.
Hello.
I just wanted to ask about tone. I think that's something on our website. I kind of feel like it's a bit formal, or like our blogs and stuff are a bit formal. I just kind of want to talk a bit about what kind of voice should we use online.
Yeah, the question is about tone and voice. And again, that's a really interesting question, because the first thing I would say is this actually isn't a digital marketing issue as much as it is a marketing issue. And that your voice needs to reflect your values, your voice needs to reflect your brand. And creating these kind of house styles as to what makes a good and consistent and warm and compelling tone of voice is something that we all need to be working on. I could give you the kind of general things about online, you know, in terms of creating the tone, in terms of the fact people scan, they don't read, the fact that people's attention spans are quite short. But I think it's actually a deeper issue than that, to make sure that you're writing in a way that reflects your values. So I think that would be my answer, that if you're looking to create your tone of voice, almost always we simply need to revert back to our values. What's important to us, you know, what do we stand for? And our tone should reflect those values. And I think if you don't know what your values are, that's where your tone gets messed up. Any more questions before I hand back over to Una? If not, that's good. Cool. Good. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you so much, Susan. Susan is always just so brilliant, and the feedback we get on all the training sessions she does is always just that she is stellar. I'm taking the lack of questions there as a sign that you might all be in need of a cup of coffee. So you'll be happy to hear that the next item on the agenda is coffee outside. When we did our meeting last year, the biggest thing that you all said in the feedback was that you wanted a bit more time. We were rushing you through the breaks. You wanted a bit more time for networking and talking to colleagues. This is a slightly longer break. We have one short session after that about email marketing and Twitter. And if you haven't heard Conor Pope give his kind of Twitter masterclasses, you're in for a treat. And Sarah Boiling from the Audience Agency is also an email marketing guru. So that's a very short session. And then we'll wrap up. Again, you all said last year, please can we finish earlier? So we're going to finish at 4:30, and we have, I'm proud to say, kept to time. So I think we'll be on course for that. Those of you who have signed up for the networking, there are some tables outside that are just marked saying networking area, if that's what you want to do. And obviously the top tips people have all agreed to be there as well if there's anything you'd like to ask them. So see you back in here in about 25, 30 minutes. Sarah, do you want to come and sit here? Or stay where you are until Fergus is finished. Sorry, I keep changing my mind. Okay, guys, we're back for one last quick session, and we were hoping that if you were in the humour for, well, we knew you would be in the humour actually, for learning some more from people who really know what they're doing. And one of those people is our last top tip of the day, who is Fergus Hannigan from the Abbey Theatre. So I'm going to ask Fergus to come up and give you his 3 minutes worth of wisdom.
So yeah, if I could tell you one thing, it's not to give a digital tip at the end of a conference where all your slides have been used and all. Your tip feels very out of date very quickly. But my main top tip is, and I'll try and be practical as well about what it means to the Abbey Theatre, is mobile first. So it's just about considering mobile at the very forefront of what you're doing digitally. So about 2 years ago, I attended an arts audiences event in Google in Dublin, and they showed a slide that was something like this, and you've seen this a lot today, but it was just an estimation back then, but now it's actually reality that there's more mobile devices than desktops in the world. So we need to really just be looking at what we're doing and putting mobile at the very forefront of what we're going to do, because it's the driver of all things digital going forward. So having seen that graph, I went back to the office and said, well, what does that mean for us? Because at the time we had a website where people were zooming in and out and pressing buttons and not really having a great time on it. So in 2013, we relaunched the website with a mobile-friendly, responsive design. Not very groundbreaking, but it was something that just worked out to be very timely at the time. Because since then, with an improved booking process, improved customer experience, it all tied in with a surge in mobile visits to the website, where we're seeing there's 130% growth in the past 2 years. This year alone, there's been more than 100,000 visits from iPhones, just from iPhones. So it's really burgeoning. I think it's just going to keep going in that direction. And by having a better mobile website, better mobile offering, we've actually seen 159% growth in revenue from mobile devices. So 1 in 3 visits to our website is now from a mobile device. It's gone from being 5% of our revenue online to 12% of our revenue online. So it's just going to keep going in that direction. So now, having done that, we're actually looking at how do we broaden from being just looking at a mobile site to looking at responsive design in our emails, looking at how we use location-based advertising. It's really considering mobile at the very fore of what you're going to do digitally. So that's it.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask Sarah Boiling, who is the Associate Director of the Audience Agency and also works for herself, and Conor Pope, if you wouldn't mind coming up, or you can stay where you are. Yep, come on up. Sarah, you're first. And Sarah is going to tell us in about 15 to 20 minutes everything we need to know about email marketing in this new environment.
Okay, thanks, Una. Gosh, that's a big ask, isn't it? Okay, so that's me, Expert's Guide to Email Marketing. Thanks for the invitation. I think Una asked me because I'm currently working on a kind of returning visitors email campaign with a group of galleries, many of whom are here today. So hello, the here and now galleries. So an expert's guide to email marketing. Well, when I was thinking about the content that I might talk about, I started to talk to people about their different top tips, and people were saying things like, well, I'm just, Instagram is where it's at for me now. I'm image led, that's what I'm doing. Or they were saying, well, it's all about Twitter, or I'm working on my my Google tabs and really need to get to the heart of my kind of analytics, or Pinterest is what I'm doing, or I'm playing about with Periscope, or our youth board setting up a Tumblr. It's all about young people. Or iBeacon is where we're really excited about iBeacon, because then we can kind of relate to people geographically where they are. Or, oh no, it's about Facebook ads, and oh no, Foursquare. So, and this is just, I could have probably put twice as many of these on. You've heard about another 10 exciting tools today. So I decided to focus my talk not on an expert's guide to email marketing, partly because I feel a bit of a fraud calling myself an expert on email marketing, because I think there are probably many experts in this room. And I've just refocused it on reasons to love email marketing. And honestly, I had already decided this before we heard from Henri this morning. Oh no, who was it that said mobile is dead? Email is dead. Email. It was Henri said. He said email marketing is dead. Trinity students aren't doing it, therefore it's dead. So I thought, yes, I will take that baton and prove that it is not dead. Email marketing is very much alive. So thank you very much to the various people that have helped me out with kind of case studies and examples. Fergus, Ashlyn from Tourism Ireland, and various other people. That's been really helpful. Annette Nugent as well. So why we should love email marketing. And this is probably a reminder, you guys know all this, but I think sometimes because we can get a bit really excited about the new shiny things, it's good to be reminded about some of the real fundamentals. It's targetable. You know, this is marketing gold dust. We know who we're talking to, we can send them the right message, we can tailor the content, we can even tailor the timing. It's everything that kind of marketing could be, really. The right message to the right person at the right time, if it's done well. There's everything from kind of dynamic kind of content. You can even pull in different content depending on who you're talking to. You can segment your database, either very simply or very complexly. There's loads of ways that actually email is the kind of perfect one-to-one below-the-line marketing tool. And of course, you can personalize it, either simply or complexly. It can be based on somebody's transaction history from your box office, or maybe you've only got their name, but at least you can kind of speak to them as another human being. And we're talking to people who already know us, and we already know them. So again, it enables us to kind of have that human relationship and really bring to life that whole kind of tone of voice, the spirit, and the kind of the values of our organization, as Susan was talking about just now. So here's some really basic examples of, here's a really simple segmentation. So I signed up to the Lighthouse Cinema. Is there anyone from the Lighthouse Cinema here today? No, okay, so I signed up to the Lighthouse email list because somebody said they were really good. So when I signed up, there's really simple segmentation here. You know, just tick the box if I've got kids, or if I'm interested in membership, or I'm a senior citizen, or if I want weekly listings. You know, really basic, but at least then they can tailor the message depending on who they're talking to. So I really like this. So when I get my emails now from the Lighthouse, it says, "Hi, Sarah," nice. So the latest one said, "Come out to the coast, we'll get together, have a few laughs." What I don't know is if I'd signed up to one of the other things, whether that would be a different kind of message, whether they'd style it slightly differently. But I really like that. It felt like I knew these people and they knew me, and it was a kind of friendly, approachable organization. So really simple, but really nice, I think. Fergus has already spoken briefly about mobile, but here's a much more sophisticated example of really fantastic email segmentation. And as it was mentioned earlier, the segmentation that Accenture helped the Abbey with has really helped inform their marketing. So these regulars segment are into direct marketing, but direct postal marketing. So you know that that's not going to be a good channel for your email, whereas the theatre lover segment are into email, and because of the research that the guys at the Abbey have done, they know the sort of content to send to those people. And even more sophisticated, which I love, it's connected with the box office. So certain triggers can trigger an email to go to somebody. So this particular one is, if somebody's quite a frequent attender, they go more than 3 times in 1 year, they get an invitation to join the membership, to take that kind of next step. So really sophisticated use of segmentation. And I've got an example of an Abby email to show you in a few slides' time. Does anyone else sign up to these guys? Obviously, I don't live in Dublin, so I don't really know who's behind this, but I really like the tone and the personal kind of human feel of this newsletter. And I really think there are real people called Michael and Stephanie behind it. There might not be, but it feels like it's from real people. And that's one of the amazing things about email, is it's about a conversation. So I think the more human we can make it, the better. So reason to love it number 2, it's scalable. I work with organizations who have got, Excel spreadsheets with 200 email addresses on it, and they can use email marketing really effectively, right up to integrated CRM, box office linked mail systems. So whatever size or scale you're working at, email can work for you. Obviously, the bigger the data, the more you can do with it, but it's still really effective, small or large. And there's so many different systems you can use, many of which are free. The entry level to MailChimp is free, so there's absolutely no excuse not to give it a try. Reason to love it number 3, it's measurable. This is another marketing holy grail. It's like, we know how effective our spend of our time and our money has been. So anyone who uses email marketing and doesn't measure its effectiveness, I just think is absolutely crazy. Again, depending on how simple or complex your system is, you can just check really basic things like the click-throughs, the open rates, the bounce backs. If it's connected with a box office, you can then kind of go on to see what the spend has been from people that you've emailed. What have they followed through onto the website? What tickets have they bought? It's totally measurable. And the other thing I love about it is it's totally testable. So by A/B testing, I mean that really simply. With most email systems, you can send out 2 versions of the same email and see which one gets a better response. Again, the more we can learn about what works, the better we can be at our jobs. So things like, testing different subject lines, testing different images. It's really, really simple to do. So here's a couple of examples of some experiments. The guys at Arts Depot, that's a multi-use art centre, kind of in the outer suburbs of London, really mixed program. And they experimented with some post-show emails. So this one went to families who had been to Three Little Pigs. So I've just got the top half, as you can see. And then below that, it said, here's the other family work coming up we think you'll be interested in. And this is what they discovered. They'd never done post-show emails before, ever. So this is the first time. So they wanted to see whether timing made a difference. So these were afternoon shows. So the first lot of people, so let's say it was the Saturday show, they emailed later on the same day. Really nice high open rate, 67%. I think that's pretty good. And because they could follow this through onto the box office, every one of those people emailed spent £3.29. So fantastic, an immediate return on investment. The people they waited the next day, slightly less good open rate, but still, a good spend. So Zahida from there was going, God, this is brilliant, this is amazing. Then she dug a bit deeper and she had a control group. So there were 3 performances of Three Little Pigs, and one set of performance data didn't get any email at all. And because they'd had such a nice time, they still spent £2.09 afterwards anyway on bookings straight after. So data is, of course, wonderful and marvelous, but I think it's always worth being a bit careful to really interrogate what's the cause and effect between something happening and your action. You need to look a bit deeper. But that's why email is so brilliant, because you can find that out. Tourism Island, was anyone at the launch of the Tourism Island marketing campaign a couple of weeks ago? No? Oh, I heard it was were you there? Was it? I heard it was really, really useful. And for them, email marketing is absolutely their top tool. So all I'm showing here is one of their kind of click heat maps. So they're going into huge detail to find out what content is most effective. Oh, and analytics again. That's another theme of today. Analyze, analyze, analyze. Number 4, it's flexible. You can use email marketing for really almost anything you might want to achieve. The trick is being really clear about what it is you do want the email to achieve. You know, it could just be a clear sales email. It could be about engaging people prior to the show. Certainly for new attenders, those emails that just kind of help with all those practical details of what time to arrive, how far away the car parking is, you know, what time will the bar be open, have you booked a table in the restaurant? All of those practical things can really help first-timers feel much more at home. And some of you might be familiar with the readiness to receive research. Has anyone heard of this Alan Brown stuff from America that he did a few years ago? No? Oh my God, do look it up. Basically, a lot of research amongst classical music audiences, and he found out that the more information people got in advance about what they were going to see, the higher the levels of kind of engagement and positivity they then reported after the concert. So this is an absolute opportune moment to tell people a bit more about the pieces they're going to hear, or give them a bit more background on the show. You know, it seems to really help people's kind of level of enjoyment and depth of engagement as well. So fantastic pre-show emails if you have the resources to do it. Awareness raising, discounting, driving traffic. And the other thing we've heard time and time again today is content. You can be as creative as sort of your resources allow in email marketing. Videos, images, links, competitions, polls, what you name it, and you can probably put it in your email marketing. So that's number 4. And here's an example from the Abbey of their, this is one of their 2 weeks to go, last minute to buy emails, which I thought I'd share with you. So a huge image, fantastic, image-led, as we've heard. And one clear and very simple call to action. Book now because it ends on the 16th of May. And that's it. You know, nothing about, well, maybe you want to have dinner as well, or how do I not think about the next show? It's like, book, 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 book. It's really clear from this email what we should do. The other things I liked in here was a nice subtle bit of, we appear to have some spare capacity, so we might be doing a bit of discounting right at the end of the run. But rather than going discount, 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 there's this nice, tickets will be €18.90 to mark the year of Ibsen's birth, which, published the play. So a really nice, clever way to sneak in a discount, but matched with, this is a quality show. Look at all of this, look at all of these reviews, look at all of this, I can't think of the word. So really nice example, it seemed to me, of a really clear call to action and really creative use of discounting. And my final point is it works. Fergus will tell you that his revenue from email marketing has risen by 154% after making some quite significant changes to software, to timings, and to audience segmentation. And I tried to find some Ireland-based audience research about this, but I couldn't, I'm afraid. But if you guys know of any, please do tell me. But some research we carried out at the audience agency a couple of years ago suggested that amongst arts goers, 45% said email is my preferred way to keep in touch, is my preferred way for arts organisations to keep in touch with me. So really, really important. But I'll just let you know, so that was the third on the list. So again, a useful reminder, they said the number 1 was website, and number 2 was pick up a leaflet while I'm there. So print is not dead. Again, I know it's a digital day, but worth being reminded that print's not dead. Okay, so there's my recap. Reasons to love it. And final slide just on some top tips, which I'm sure you're doing this already. Be clear about what you want to achieve in the email, and then focus your content accordingly. Mobile first, images, images, images. Subject lines can make a huge difference to the open rate. It's all about the quality of the content, and it's all about the quality of the list you're sending to. You know, you need compelling information within there, and you need to make sure that you're matching the content with the people. You know, the quality of that database that you're sending your emails to is absolutely crucial. And test, experiment, try something different, see if it works, try something again, refine it, you know, have fun with it. Oh, and sorry, another small change is that, yes, I am at the audience agency, but I'm not really completely at the audience agency anymore. So I'm just me. So I just put that up. So.
I want to ask you a question, Sarah.
Yes.
Which is, what do you think about the weekly newsletter? The email marketing, you know, I understand.
Yeah.
What's your view on, you know, a multidisciplinary venue, sending out a weekly newsletter? What do you think?
I think it's hard to say. I think you should talk to your customers and see what they want and what they like. It's really hard to give a blanket judgment to say weekly is bad, monthly is good. It kind of depends. So I would, you know, if you're doing that already, look what the open rates are, look what the click-through rates, bring a, you know, couple of groups of people together to talk about the different ways that they find out. So it's not that easy, really. I'd say use your evidence and then make a decision accordingly.
Okay. I think we're going to move straight
Yeah.
to Conor, if that's okay. And there will be the chance to ask Sarah some questions. And I'm sure you all know who Conor Pope is. And Conor, we've been briefly, this morning we were trending #1 on Twitter in Ireland at this event here today. So if you'd like to come up here, you've 20 minutes, as it says.
Okay, well, the first thing I should say is it's probably a really bad idea to slag off the previous speakers. So with that in mind, I'll just give out about the previous two speakers. I couldn't disagree more with the whole notion of email marketing, and that's just from a personal perspective. And that's because over the last 20 years, I've become extremely adept at filtering out messages which I perceive to be spam. Even though they mightn't be spam, I perceive them to be spam. And even email digests and services that I've signed up to, as recently as 2 weeks ago, I still get irritated when they arrive in my email box. Some of you probably feel the same, others probably don't. Also, my presentation is generally speaking 3 hours long, and it's called the Twitter Bootcamp or Masterclass. Now, rather than shortening it, which would have been the difficult thing to do, I just decided I'd speak really quickly and have the same number of slides. But if you pay real attention, towards the end, I'll slag off the Abbey. Now, this is a very small introduction to where we are. And the reason why I've got this slide here, I think it shows how far we have come as a society over the last 30 years. Because in 1981, Apple came to Cork for the very first time. And I'm not sure if you can read the text there, but the intro in the Cork Examiner story said, 5 years from now, Irish housewives could be throwing away their cookery books and taking their recipes off the screens of mini computers, and family doctors will be storing their patients' histories in the same way. Now imagine that was the limit of our imagination in 1981, that housewives would be throwing away their cookery books. Then in 1993, The Sun published this rather subtle headline, Worldwide What? And computer web to change the lives of millions of people, or to change millions of lives. Yeah, right. And again, you know, The Sun thought it was right on the money. It thought it knew exactly where the world was going. And the reason why those two slides are there is to show how much the world has changed in the last 30 years and how ridiculous it is for us to imagine where the world will be in the next 10, 15, 20 years. Now, I've slagged off the last speaker and the speaker before that I'm going to slag off in a little while, so I might as well slag myself off now while I'm at it, because in the bump for the conference, I was described as a Twitter guru. I'm nothing of the kind. I don't even know if I'm a social media expert, but what I am is somebody who really enjoys using Twitter. And the reason I say that, and the reason why it's important, is if people enjoy using social media from their personal perspective or from their business perspective, they will get a whole lot more out of it, because that is always reflected in the quality of the tweets and the quality of the engagement that they have with individuals and with other people. And that's what makes a big difference. I'm not going to go, as I say, I've got to fly through all my slides. So there's this was done about 18 months ago, and what I think stands out here, there's things like Foursquare. Like, remember Foursquare? You'd all be I am currently in Dublin Castle. We don't do that anymore. There's a few other ones that are missing there, like Tinder. I don't have that on it, but you all know what that is anyway. These are the social networks in Ireland in May. They haven't changed greatly since then. You have Facebook as the runaway leader on 60%, Twitter's on 26%, LinkedIn on 24%. The one that I'm always amazed at is Google Plus, which is on 23%. Now, show of hands, when was the last time, or anyone used Google Plus in the last 3 months? There's one. Oh, last 3 months, no. Nobody uses it, and the only reason why it's on the chart at all is because it's so tied into all the other Google products. So it's completely, it's a nonsense thing. But anyway, here's some random facts about Twitter. It was born on July the 15th, 2006. On that day, 224 tweets were sent. Today, more than 500 million tweets are posted every single day. There's 288 million active users. Katy Perry has 72 million followers. She's the most followed person on Twitter. YouTube is the most followed brand. 80% of Twitter users access it on a mobile device. And what Fergus said about the future being mobile is absolutely on the money, because that is where everything is going to happen. It's where newspapers are going. It's where almost all of the online world is going to be in the next 5 or 10 years. I was at a retail conference a couple of weeks ago, and the poor retailers were absolutely terrified about what is coming down the tracks at them in the shape of people's use of mobile devices. Khloe Kardashian, who, as you know, is the lesser known of the Kardashians, earns $13,000 per sponsored tweet. Amazing. The most retweeted tweet belongs to Ellen. I'm going to show you that in a second. 127,000 accounts with a blue tick, and tweets with hashtags received twice the engagement of tweets that don't have hashtags. Of all those facts, the last one is probably the most important. This is what Twitter looked like on the first day it was launched. It's come a long way since then, although not as far as some other brands. Why it matters. Now, there's 2 slides here. One is why it matters generally speaking, and one is why it matters to you. It's an incredibly effective distribution platform. It's where almost every single thing I can think of over the last 3 years has broken first. In the old days, news had a very familiar flow. Something would happen somewhere, a local reporter on the ground would hear about it, put it into a local newspaper or local radio station. It would be picked up by the wires would report it, and it would be picked up by the international media. That's the way the news broke right up until 5, 6, 7 years ago. Today, virtually every single story, from the Charlie Hebdo massacres to the shooting down of the Malaysian airplane over the Ukraine, they all break on Twitter first. And my favorite example of a story breaking on Twitter first came in January of 2013, when Pope Benedict XVI announced his intention to resign. Now, the way the story unfolded was quite interesting, because every single month, and it happens every month, the Pope, whoever the Pope might be, will come into a heated room in the Vatican and say, he'll go down through the process of a number of different people who are heading through the canonization process. So he'll say, Pope John the 23rd is doing well this month, Pope John Paul II has slipped back a little bit, Mother Teresa is doing well, and he'll go through another 100 saints or would-be saints who you've never heard of. And he delivers the whole monologue in Latin, in a really hot room in the Vatican, flanked by a cardinal on either side of him. Now, in January of 2013, the Pope did exactly that. Came in, gave his little monologue, and every single month the Italian press sent 3 journalists to cover this particular event. Now, on this occasion, only one of the journalists spoke Latin. The other 2 were sitting beside her, bored senseless. And then at the end of his little monologue, the Pope says, also in Latin, by the way, at the end of next month, I'm resigning. Now, she takes out her phone and she texts her boss, Pope Benedict, to resign at the end of next month. Then she puts it on Twitter. Pope Benedict announces his intention to resign, _Enza. And she hits send. By the time the press conference ended 10 minutes later, it had been retweeted over 500,000 times. And that's how the story broke. Now, can you imagine how terrible you would have felt if you were one of the other reporters in the room walking out going, fairly quiet there now today, nothing going on. That's how all stories break. So if you're not on it and if you're not engaged with it, you're missing out. And that's the plain and simple truth of it. And that's both from a personal and a professional perspective. It's a great marketing tool, although it has to be used carefully. Multiple conversations, it's open, it's public, it's global, it's fast, and it's changed writing. And this is one of the things that really appeals to me, because writing has evolved significantly over the last 5 or 6 years. And people who are trying to reach new customers, people who are trying to reach a new audience, don't have the luxury of padding out their email with hundreds and hundreds of superfluous words, or they don't have the luxury of burying the interesting fact in paragraph 8. If you're sending something out via Twitter, you have 140 characters to get the message across, so you have to act fast. In terms of an arts community, you connect with your would-be audiences. Now, the reality is that if someone engages with you on social media, if someone engages with you on Twitter, they're infinitely more likely to attend your shows. So you want to build that engagement with people in real time. It allows you to build a brand, to get feedback, both positive and negative. Because let's face it, you know, if the Abbey does something controversial, I mean, far be it from me to say they would, but imagine if they did something controversial and it blew up on Twitter. To be a way for them to identify that was happening in a very quick and speedy way. It also allows you to extend awareness and widen reach, spread news. You spy on your competitors, you see what they're up to. You build loyalty. You engage and you talk to people, you sell ideas, and you bring people with you. And ultimately, that's always the goal. So you build your follower base. So this is an American notion. It's a journey. And it's a journey full of terrifying highs. And there is something quite intoxicating about when you first discovered the real joy of Twitter, about going to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning with 100 followers and waking up with 120. It's like 120 people followed me while I slept. You feel almost like Jesus. Because we don't have, it's not like Facebook when you've got friends, you've got followers. But it's also filled with depressing and terrifying lows, like that time when you post the hilarious joke on Twitter and the virtual tumbleweed blows down, or nobody cares about you, or nobody follows you. So how do you get your followers? You have to be original, you have to create a compelling profile that's rich in keywords, you have to update a professional profile picture, and not just of your logo, you have to have a professional profile picture that has people in it. A customized header and background that looks very attractive. This is very important. You always have to post when your audience is listening, and you have to talk when your audience is engaging. Now, one of the things that a lot of companies, a lot of individuals make is they post at the wrong time. You need to know when the people who you want to reach are on social media, when they're on Twitter, and that's when you have to be posting. There's all sorts of websites that you can, all sorts of apps you can use. There's one called Follower Wonk. It's free to use, and it allows you to download exactly when the people who are following you on Twitter are online and most active. Then it allows you to work out when you're online and most active. And your job, if you're in it as a business or to promote a brand, you have to match the two things up. You have to provide tweets that are rich in value, original content. You share relevant content. That's why I'll be slagging off the Abbey, by the way. But only in a light-hearted way. You have to keep your tweets short, 100 characters or less. You actually have 140 characters, as you all know, in a tweet. The shorter they are, the more likely people are to engage them. You have to start conversations by using mentions and replies and getting involved in the debate. What you don't ever do is just preach to people, or you don't ever just retweet how brilliant somebody else has said you are. What you need to do is talk to people, and that's how you build followers. You use your hashtag sparingly. If you've got 2 hashtags in a tweet, you'll see engagement going up by between 15 and 20%. If you've got 3 hashtags in a tweet, you sound kind of skittish, and you'll see engagement levels fall. How often should you tweet? Between 3 and 5 times a day, and that's at a minimum. Like, sometimes you could tweet 3 or 5 times in 5 minutes. It all depends, but generally speaking, that's not a bad rule of thumb. You also follow those influencers, the people who set the pace. So if you're going to write great content, and that's really why I'm here, I've got about 5 slides to talk about this. The really key thing is you've got to focus on what you're trying to do. And always, 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 no matter what level you're tweeting, the goals are to amplify your story, to engage people, to get them to read, comment, or pass a message on to other people, and to complete some kind of conversion-related activity, such as click here to visit my site, look at this image that we've taken from our play, or whatever it might be. You're not tweeting in a vacuum, and you're not mindlessly tweeting. You're tweeting with goals, and they are the goals. And to get that, to achieve those goals, your tweets have to pass 3 filters. They have to be readable, they have to be interesting, and they have to be compelling enough to be retweeted. So if you were to sit down, if you learn nothing else, if you take away nothing else from this, if you think, okay, amplify, engage, convert, make it readable, interesting, and compelling. And if you did those 2, if you followed those 2 slides, everything falls into place. I've been doing these writing for the web courses for the Irish Times as part under the auspice of the Irish Times since 2001, 2002, and all the slides have changed dramatically over the period of the last 13 years. This slide has never changed, because this slide, and I could be giving these courses in 500 years' time. If they work out a way, I can upload my consciousness to the cloud, which is what I read a Google futurologist telling us we could do in the next 20 years. I'll be grand. These will never change. Because if you're going to tweet well, you have to write well. Specific words always work better than general ones because you're painting pictures in people's heads. So you've no time for woolly expressions or abstract phrases. You're painting pictures in people's heads. The man was wearing a brightly colored coat. If I gave you crayons and said, can you draw a picture of the man now? You'd struggle. The man was wearing a bright red coat, bright yellow coat. You can suddenly do it. Keep it simple and use plain words. Believe me, the greatest sin that any writer can commit is to use multisyllabic words because they think it makes them sound smart. Using bigger words, it doesn't make you sound smart. Keep it short. One of the tricks that I've learned over 20 years working in the Irish Times is self-editing is really hard because your brain works in a certain way. You write the content, and then when you read it the second time, your brain skips over a few of the words because it knows what those words are because it's written them down. If you read stuff aloud, it stops your brain doing that, and you spot mistakes because there's nothing more mortifying than posting a tweet and then realizing you've left out the apostrophe in your, and everybody is retweeting your tweet, and you can't get it back then because it's just, you know, you've made a big mistake. So just bear that in mind. If you can't read something aloud with the conviction of Abraham Lincoln delivering the Gettysburg Address, well, something's wrong with the writing. Do it better. And it really helps if you're building a brand to focus on that good writing. Don't use words thoughtlessly. Waiting ambulances never rush victims to hospital because they're in fact waiting. Meteors fall, so there's no such thing as a meteoric rise. I'm not presently standing here because presently doesn't mean currently. And there's 1,000 other words that people use inaccurately. If you can cut it down and make it short, always do that. How to tweet? Well, think about how you scan Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. What are the things that reach you? What are the things that attract your attention? What are the things that are useful to you? I'll skip through those. But writing is only a part of it because everything else is about interaction, by answering questions, by talking to people, by retweeting information that you think is relevant and providing reliable content. The golden rules: too many organizations push product messages too hard. And this is the problem I have with the email marketing. And it's also the problem I have with big theatre groups posting stuff about their next upcoming, or about their upcoming show, or about their show today. And if you post too many product messages, people grow frustrated, and we have become extremely adept at filtering out those messages. So all these social networks, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of them, they were designed for people. And despite the fact that some of them are multi-billion-dollar enterprises, they're still about people. So you have to always ask, why would people care about this update and why would they share it? So this top-down approach just doesn't work. Have users lead the conversation, you become part of that conversation. Also think about every point of contact that a consumer might have with an organization. Let's say if you have a play on, let's say if you've got a musical performance in your theatre, you have to put a little bit of effort into thinking what the lobby is going to look like, or the foyer. Because what you want is, you want people to come into the theatre and say, oh my God, look at that amazing thing they have there. I'm going to take a photograph of it and I'm going to put it on Instagram. I'm going to put it on Twitter. I'm going to share this stuff, because then you have the public pushing your brand. I once worked in the Shelbourne Hotel. I say worked, I actually spent 8 hours being an Egypt in the Shelbourne Hotel for an article I had to write for the paper. And one of the things that struck me about it was they had a florist, 2 florists working full time in the Shelbourne Hotel to deliver fancy bouquets to well-heeled Americans in the hotel rooms in the hotel. But they also spent the first 45 minutes of every day designing this incredible floral bouquet for the lobby of the Shelbourne Hotel. And I was looking at them, why on earth would you do that? Why would you dedicate 2 people to putting this floral bouquet in the lobby? Why not just whack a few lilies into a vase and away you go? But the reason became clear when I was spending the whole day there, because everybody, or every second person who walked through the lobby went, oh my God, look at those flowers, they're amazing. And they would take a picture of them and they would post them into a public sphere, a public forum. So they were all advertising the hotel. And that's what you need to be doing. You need to be thinking of all the ways that you can do it. So for instance, if you have a program, anyone put their hashtag on the program? You all should. It's a standard thing. A couple of did you knows, tweets sent over the weekend of a 15% higher engagement rate than those sent during the week. That's not to say they're read by 15% more people, but more people are likely to engage. Wednesdays and Thursdays, lowest level of engagement. So there's no point in tweeting about this. Nobody's going to engage with you. 1 or 2 hashtags good, 3 hashtags bad. 100 characters is the optimum. I've got a tweet here. I'm not actually even going to go to the example, but this is an example of how something can be written very poorly. On the homepage of the Irish Times, there's a link to some tips I've written on how to write effective tweets so that your tweets get noticed. It's terrible. The language is clunky, it's ugly, and I've got tweets there, and it appears in the same, or just separated by only 3 small little words. It's terrible. How would you make it better? How to write effective tweets. Essential reading for digital marketers on the IT Now #marketing. It's promising the how-to. I'm telling the reader who follows the link that they're going to learn something. The link comes nice and early, so they don't have to read the rest of my tweet if they're busy people. And Lord knows people online are very busy people. They don't have time to read that extra 6 words. Essential reading. And I've got plenty of characters. Never use more than 2 hashtags in a tweet. More great tips here. So I've given you a piece of information that's useful to you, and I'm hoping that piece of information will make you think, oh, he's got 1 tip there that I didn't know. Maybe he'll have another one. Struggling to write tweets that hit the mark? You need to read my Times piece. I've identified an issue you might have, and then I've offered you a solution. You need to read this. Just want to talk to you very quickly about this. This is a great, great example of the perfect tweet. Because here you have 5 or 6 or 10 celebrities, actors, all coming together in a moment of spontaneity for the world's most famous selfie. I took this screen grab 2 days after the tweet was posted, and it had been retweeted 3.1 million times at that point. It's by far the most widely retweeted tweet in history. It surpassed the one that was of Barack Obama and Michelle Obama hugging after the last general election, or presidential election. Now, for most people, they just saw this and they thought it was brilliant. And they all loved it, everyone retweeted it. But what a lot of people don't know is that tweet cost $18 million to put together. Because Samsung were the official sponsors of the Oscars that year, and they came to the Oscars committee and said, right, we want product placement for our brand. How are we going to do that? Like, they could just have Samsung phones in the audience. That wouldn't have worked. So instead, they came up with this idea. They crafted the notion that Ellen would arrange for Bradley Cooper to take the picture in the Oscars, and he was using a Samsung phone. Now, the nice thing about it is there's no gotcha moment. There's no moment when you realize, oh, that's an ad. That's terrible, until maybe now for some of you in the audience. But you don't know it. And then you think, well, what's the value of it? How does it work? And the reason why it worked is that the tweet went absolutely mad. Everybody who saw the tweet, most people said, oh, that's a brilliant picture. It's really good quality. And remember, this is going back a couple of years when the quality of your phones wasn't brilliant. So everyone thought it was great. But then all the follow-on stories came up. Stories started to be appeared in all the international press, and they showed the photograph being taken. And in every single one of those photographs that appeared in thousands of newspapers all over the world, the Samsung phone was there. So they got a huge pickup on it. It worked really well for them. This one I like even better because it's cheap and free. You can still dunk in the dark. A tweet posted by Oreo Cookies on the day the lights went out in the Super Bowl in 2013. Now, what was nice about this was there was a power cut on the Super Bowl. All of these big brands are spending millions of dollars building these ad campaigns to run during the ad breaks in the Super Bowl. The lights go out, and someone in Oreo Cookie said, we've got a picture that'll fit that. They took out the picture, they typed the text, you can still dunk in the dark, and they hit send, and it was retweeted over and over again. I like this one because it's just silly. Taco Bell, you're eating, because everyone knows that's not how you eat a taco. You don't eat it from the center, you eat it from the edges. So you're doing it wrong, was the tweet. The make there is my mistake. I like this one because it's Irish. It's Oscar's Cafe Bar. I don't know if anybody here is familiar with Oscar's Cafe Bar in Smithfield. It's a lovely little cafe. What they did was they have Wi-Fi. You won't see what it is yet, but the Wi-Fi code for the cafe was hipsters, please buy something. Because obviously hipsters come in, they have 1 cup of coffee, and they sit there for like 16 hours tweeting their mates. Make that the hashtag, and suddenly somebody picks it up somewhere, somebody else picks it up, and then suddenly it was retweeted thousands and thousands and thousands of times. Now, this is not me giving the Abbey a hard time, because actually the Abbey is very good on Twitter. But this is just some random screen grabs I've taken of the Abbey's tweets in recent times. And they're not all bad. I wonder. See, what the Abbey's job is to be the best artistic Twitter account in the country, because that's what the Abbey should stand for. It's a hugely important institution, and it should be absolutely peerless. So it should be looking at all its tweets going, how can we make this better? And simply tweeting something like, playwright and poet emeritus, NUIG at NUIG Galway, Thomas Kilroy speaking at Abbey Books. What I want to hear is what's he saying, because a picture of the guy speaking and the tweet telling me that he's speaking gives me, the user, nothing. But it makes the Abbey feel like they're engaged. And I don't mean to give the person who did it a hard time, because that's, you could look through my timeline, for the last hour, and there's some rubbish tweets. And I'm not saying these are bad, but it could be better. Because what the tweet should say, it should have a short quote, 8 or 9 words from what he said, and try and make it dynamic. Try and give the user something of value. And also, if you're going to use a picture, make sure the person's head is in the picture. But these things happen. We all do that. I just think it could be better. This is another issue I have with the Abbey. Are you joining us for #YouCanNeverTell this Christmas? See our opening times and performance schedule here. Then there's You Can Never Tell, Witty, Harmonic, lots of audience reaction. All of them are plugging the play. And I think when it comes to that, you need, as an audience, you people out here, like, how can we promote our play in a way that is more engaging and more subtle? You don't just want to say, come and see our play. Come and see our play, #OurPlay. You don't want to do that. You want to try and tell people that there is something of real value for them. Because if you don't, you're falling into the trap of following the brand-led, top-down marketing approach. And what Twitter is all about, it's about engaging with the would-be audience, and it's about making or compelling them to want to visit you. But more than that, it's about building a relationship between the Abbey Theatre and the general public, so that the people who rely on that Twitter account for interesting, engaging, informative material will always come back to it, and will start to always going back to the plays. I just had one from the Gate. Not to slag off the Gate either, because I mean, they're both very good, but the interesting thing about the Gate's Twitter account, and bear in mind, this is a snapshot in time, this is yesterday, is that the Gate will have, it's not just talking about the world in which it lives. It's talking about more than that. It's talking about things that are going on in the world. So I don't know if you can see that, but I think there's somebody slagging off Donald Trump on the Gate Twitter feed. And what's not to love about that? We can all enjoy that. But I think all accounts, and it doesn't matter if it's like the National Theatre, or if it doesn't matter if it's a small little organisation that's been set up in Galway, it doesn't matter. You should all look at how you can create the impression that you're real people, and that you're a real organisation, and that you're engaged and involved with the people who follow you. Obviously, sometimes I say you should all get involved in the conversation. You should try and start the conversation. You shouldn't get involved in brand-led messages. Now, clearly, this is what McDonald's did. They wanted to get involved they wanted to start a conversation and be part of a conversation. So a while back, they created this little #MacD stories. And what McDonald's were hoping would happen was that people would reminisce about that time their dear old departed dad took them to McDonald's, and they all had shared a family moment in the restaurant. But that's not what happened. It was hundreds and hundreds of people talking about the time they were hospitalized, the time they saw rats, and it just became this huge viral thing, and there was nothing poor McDonald's could do about it, except suck it up. And that's what happens when things go wrong. So these are the guidelines that the Irish Times has. There's some of our guidelines. Now, they're guidelines. I'm not going to police them very rigidly, but the key ones here are exercise good judgment and common sense, because they will be your friends. Always approach Twitter with exactly the same standards that you would bring to a contribution to a radio program or a television program. But the last one is the most important. It's the last two, in fact. Never post while under the influence of alcohol, and I'm serious. Never ever tweet while drunk. I'll just give you one very quick example of how badly that can go wrong. And that is, there's an account called @Ireland. You familiar with the @Ireland account? It's a lovely idea. Every week, they give the @Ireland account to a different person to curate. And that person might be from some organisation that's in the news. So in the run-up to the budget, it might be somebody from, I was going to say an accountant, but probably never from an accountant. That'd be really dull. It might be from, like if it's the Galway races, it might be a jockey. If it's the Rosa Tralee, it might be a former Rosa Tralee, or it might be an escort, or it might be something like that. It's always somebody in the news. And October, a couple of years ago, they gave the @Ireland account to a chap from Munich. And they gave it to him because the Oktoberfest was on. And the guy was just uniformly brilliant. He was great on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and most of Thursday of the account. He was just fantastic because he knew about Ireland, he knew about our economic situation, and he knew that our overlords in Frankfurt had at least something to do with our economic collapse. And by something, I mean almost everything. But he knew about our politics, he knew about our music, he knew about our theatre, he knew about our poets. He was just really well-rounded, a Renaissance man. And then on the Thursday, he said he was going off to meet some people in the Munich Fest tent the Oktoberfest tent. So off he went, and it was all lovely. He tweeted pictures, which is another thing that I say you should do. He created the sense of being in the place. So he tweeted pictures of the metro, and everything was brilliant, and it was just all lovely. Then he gets into the tent, and he did another thing which I said you should do. After a while, there was silence. He tweeted, does anyone know if there's an ATM in the tent? Now, Twitter's great for asking questions of people, because you always get real answers. What's the best pub in Galway? Everyone will say Noctons. What's the best chipper in Galway? Everyone will say McDonald's. Whatever it might be, you get answers as opposed to Google, and it depends on what the search engine optimization. So he said, anyone know if there's an ATM in the tent? Now, obviously, an Irish audience hadn't a clue, but that was the last we heard from this lovely chap for a very long time, until about 1 o'clock in the morning, when there was a solitary tweet which said, I'm really lonely. And like very few people were up and following it, but then it was like, okay. And then a couple of seconds later, I tried to kiss a woman tonight and she knocked me back. And then I haven't had sex in 15 years. Everyone thinks I'm fat and ugly and unattractive, and I'm really, really upset. And it just went on and on and on. This torrent of self-loathing fueled by alcohol. And in any other circumstance, in any other world, you would be able to tap him on the shoulder and say, come on, we get a cab home. It's time to go. But nobody could reach him. And then he went to sleep, as you do. And you could almost feel the tension the following morning across Ireland, as people were deliberately following the account to see what would happen, to see how he'd respond. And it was the worst case of horrors you could possibly imagine. So, it's 11 o'clock and there's still no sign of him. And if it was me, I might have just closed down the account and gone home. But so then eventually he comes on, he tweets something like, I think I was a little bit pissed last night. And what happened next was just lovely, because every single tweet that came his direction for the next 3 or 4 hours was things like, don't worry about it, buy yourself a rasher sandwich and have a cup of tea, you'll be grand. And I'm convinced that if that happened in any other country in the world, the guy would have been pilloried and savaged, driven out of his job, his home, whatever. But no, Irish people liked him, and that's why I think Twitter is a really good thing in an Irish context, because ultimately we like talking to each other, and Twitter is one way that you can talk to each other in a real and tangible way. Anyone has any questions?
We have a minute or two if anyone has any questions for Conor. But I think he has more or less managed to do the 3 hours in whatever, 30 minutes.
No,
there's
there's one
question there.
Hi, how are you, Conor? I'm wondering what your opinion is on the like Twitter business, like sponsored Twitter posts. I'm guessing that you're not a mad fan of it.
I'm not, and for the very simple reason that I don't think it's necessary. If you use Twitter in a more intelligent way, you can probably circumvent the sponsored tweets. Like some people will have the analytics and they'll say those sponsored tweets work really well, but like the best tweets, the ones that reach the widest audience are the ones that are organic and are the ones that are just coming from somebody doing something real and talking about it in a real and meaningful way. The best Twitter account, by the way, one of the best Twitter accounts I've come across in a long time, and like it's not new, is anyone familiar with the Cliff House Hotel in Ardmore in Waterford? Lovely hotel. One of the nice things about how they use their Twitter account is they never advertise anything on their Twitter account. They never say we've got rooms for sale, we've got tables free in the restaurant. They just talk about the story of the hotel every single day. And they make people understand how special the hotel is just by telling the story of the hotel. And I think that's a key message for a lot of people. You tell the story of what you're doing and people will come along with you by doing that.
Anybody else? Okay, well, we've run over a bit, so thank you very much, Conor.
No problem at all.
You're great. And much appreciated. And okay.
Okay.
Great. Gillian, will you take Conor off? Yeah. Okay, so this is called the wrap-up. I'm going to be, I would say, about 2 minutes, and then we will really finish. And I've had a great day, and I think I've realised, for the first time, really, I kind of believe what people have said for a long time, which is that this whole digital thing is actually amounts almost to a philosophy. And I started to think that this morning when Henri O'Toole was talking, and I became even more convinced of it when Chris Davey talked to us about big data. I want to say a number of really heartfelt thank yous. The first is to all of the people here at Dublin Castle and the technical team particularly. They have been absolutely amazing. And I want to thank the IT guys. Many of you will know Joe and the gang, but they did all the Twitter wall work for us and everything. And again, they're a joy to work with. The top tips people were a bit terrified when I asked them to do it, but the feedback I've had at lunchtime and at the breaks from a lot of people has been that actually that was one of their favorite parts about the whole day. So to the 8 people who shared their top digital marketing tips with us, thank you so much. And Nicola Murphy. Nicola Murphy made what I know is an absolutely genuine offer that if you don't know how to use, to apply for and get a Google grant and use it for Google AdWords, she will come and help you do it. And I know that that is true. We had volunteers here today, both from the MA in Cultural Policy and Management at UCD and from IADT. And they're the people you have seen giving you your badges and managing the microphones at the end of sessions. So thanks to them, they gave up time both yesterday and today to do it, and I hope they've learned something. And I want to thank Irma McLaughlin, who I'm sure you all know, for her bringing her conference expertise. Nobody knows how to organize roving mics like Irma, and she was really good at ringing the bell. Congratulations. And from a personal perspective, I want to really thank Gillian Clark, who you all know, who I'd say never wants to hear the words focus on audiences ever again, as long as she lives. She has been living with it for months and has done essentially everything. So have a great evening, and please remember to leave your badges. If you're not in it already, there's a Facebook group called the Irish Arts Marketing Meetup, and people share a lot of tips. Like yesterday, Kate Ferris posted something saying, you know, what's the name of that website where you can check the reading age of the copy you've written? And a whole load of people answered her, including Al Russell, who's down there, who of course knew the answer, knew what she meant. So there is a forum online in that Facebook group for you to ask questions and to find out what people's top tips are and to share expertise. So if you're not in that group, I would urge you to join it. And then obviously, oh look, it's animated. A very happy Christmas. Have a great time.